Hello, you guys. I'm going to probably be doing a couple of these today um, that are going to take the place of uh, my news, probably. Just because I feel like each of these subjects I could probably do a whole video on, right? So I want to talk about Representative Steve King and why I don't care what he said. Actually, I'm glad he said what he said because I had somebody, a Black person, come into my comment section under one of my videos to complain about the fact that I don't like the term white supremacy. And I don't like the term for a reason. I don't like the term because words have power and there's nothing supreme about whiteness. That's a name that they came up for themselves. And right on time, because I'm telling you, this person came in my comment section, I'm gonna find their comment. Right on time, Steve King made his comment to prove my point, right? To prove my point. And then I just want to talk about the hypocrisy of all of these white lawmakers who are denouncing him, because they're actual literal walking hypocrites. And they do things in plain sight and act like people, aren't going to notice it. So, for those of you who don't know what Steve King said, let me tell you what he said. Steve King made a comment during an interview, and this was his comment. His comment was, white nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? That was his comment. Let me repeat, representative. He's an Iowa representative. His name is Steve King, and if you guys haven't heard it, let me just repeat what he said. White nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? His blue-eyed self asks, right? Now, I use Western civilization to indicate power that whiteness has as it spread itself out throughout the world and colonized various places and brutalized their people. He recognizes that's what it is because he teamed it in with white nationalists and white supremacists. I mean, they know what Western civilization means. It means their civilization, right? Their history, their conquest. Now, he also said white nationalist, right? But he said white supremacist. They like the term white supremacist, which is why I don't advocate for any person who's not white using it. It's a term they made for themselves to make themselves feel good. We could use white tyranny. We could use white psychopathy. We could use white harassment. We could use a lot of, you name it, but don't make it sound positive. Do you know what I mean? Don't use the word supreme. Do you know what I mean? We could call it white pandemonium. I can't say it. Pandemoniumism. Like I'm going to create a word. Pandemoniumism. Okay? That's just white people out of control. We could call it anything, but we don't have to call it white supremacist. And Steve King proves that because he's like white nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? But my problem is that people are trying to silence him. And I don't understand why anybody would try to silence this man. Like, let this man do him. We need more people to be honest, because to be true, my problem with this kind of fake outrage thing is that Representatives Andy Harris and Phil Rowe, who are also Republicans, they voted to denounce Steve King. And after they voted to denounce Steve King, like literally right after they voted to denounce Steve King, The very next day, they were with a white supremacist. They were photographed walking through a federal building with a straight up white supremacist named Chuck Johnson. And that's why I say we shouldn't silence Steve King. Because we're comfortable with people faking like they have some sort of progressive, inclusive mindset. People are hard up on Steve King because he says all kinds of racist stuff all the time. But I feel he should be allowed to speak. I feel people who feel that way should not just be allowed to speak. You know, Steve King is talking about his First Amendment right. You know what? I agree with him. I agree with him. Don't tread on his freedom of speech. He should not only be allowed to say whatever the heck he wants, it should be encouraged. Yeah, I mean that. It should be totally encouraged. We should encourage white supremacists, all people, to say exactly what's on their mind, exactly what is in their heart. Because the same people that will openly on the House floor denounce Steve King turned around the next day and were hanging out with the white supremacists. So they voted against Steve King because they claimed his comment about white nationalist, white supremacist, and Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? That's what Steve King said. Everybody's pretending to be mad at him. And then you have Andy Harris and Phil Rowe publicly denounce him and vote to denounce Steve King. And then they turn around the next day and they are literally photographed hanging out in a federal building with a known white supremacist by the name of Chuck Johnson. And that's the problem with this fake outrage. You know, people want to be in denial. I honestly feel this. I feel there are a group of white people and an even more massive group of Black people who want to just live in ultimate and total denial of reality. We want somebody to say something we don't like, everybody to pretend to jump on them and denounce them so we can feel better, when in reality, they all are in agreement with each other. Steve King represents Iowa. He won with a landslide 60% vote and more than half the vote in 2018. Almost every representative from Iowa is white. You would think nobody who wasn't white lived there. Like literally almost all their reps are white. He's known to use this language. And everybody wants to feel good that our lawmakers are so-called denouncing him. But I'm going to tell you, I have a problem with the fake outrage and the fake denouncements. Because like I said, Andy Harris and Phil Rowe denounced him and then went and hung out with a white supremacist on camera the very next day. And then you had, which was even more irritating to me, Tim Scott. Okay? Because there always has to be a dissenter who's got to throw on a cape. That's Black. So then we have Tim Scott. He's part of the Republican Party. And he's going to pop up and rear his little black head. He's the only Black Republican in the Senate. And he's going to go, oh, some people in our party wonder why Republicans are constantly accused of racism. Accused of racism, he says. Not that they are racist. Now, don't get me wrong. The Democrats are racist too. But at least the Republicans used to have some honesty about them. Now everybody's just a liar. The Democrats hate Black people and they're pretending like they don't. The Republicans hate Black people and they're pretending like they don't. And then we're going to have the one Republican Black senator stand up and throw on his cape and talk about some people in our party wonder why Republicans are constantly accused of racism. They're not accused. Steve King literally said he needs to understand how white nationalist, white supremacist, and Western civilization has become offensive. He's confused. And then your other Republican cohorts, Andy Harris and Philip Rowe, denounced Steve King and then went and hung out with a white supremacist on federal grounds on camera 24 hours later. Accused of racism? And those are just the ones we caught. We don't know about the ones we didn't catch. Okay? That's just the stuff we know. That has nothing to do with the stuff we don't know. They're accused of racism. What was that Republican candidate? He said, don't monkey it up. He was running against a black guy talking about don't monkey it up. And then we're going to have the one black Republican senator talk about some people in our party wonder why Republicans are constantly accused of racism. They're racist. That's why they're constantly accused of racism. Black man, can you take off your cape for 2 seconds? And then he's going to go, it's because our silence when things like this are said. They're silent because they agree. They will simultaneously denounce Steve King because the public is outraged. And then go and meet on camera, full on photographs and everything, videotape and everything with a white supremacist on federal grounds the very next day. That would be racist. That would be a clear indication that they're racist, not some weird confusion. And I'm upset that Tim Scott is co-signing this. I am upset that he is co-signing this. That he's in any way, shape, or form defending this. Are we going to pretend like this is not a real thing? And then everybody wants to silence them and start having votes to shut them up. No, don't shut these people up. Let them talk. Let them speak. You know, I got pushed back because of that Malcolm X speech I played on my video about Sambo and Uncle Tom being equally villainous. I got some pushback on that clip. Do I agree with everything Malcolm X said? No. But I agree with the brutal expression of his thoughts. I'm posting a video to my Patreon today of a Phil Donahue episode where Black people and white people are actually being honest with each other about how they really feel about each other. Because you see, when the gloves come off, then we can know who the friends and who the foes are, no matter the color of their skin, right? We're all sitting here playing nice and being fake. And every time somebody tries to be real, we want to shut them up. That's the society that we're building, right? That's the society we want. We don't want honesty. We want the illusion of inclusion. I'm going to turn into Dr. Seuss up here. We want the illusion of inclusion. We want the illusion of acceptance. We want the illusion of progress. We're not looking for real progress. We're not looking for reality. We're not looking for truth. And that is my personal problem. I had somebody tell me we live in a post-racial society. No, we live in a fake society. Fake, you know, where everybody pretends like everything's okay. We just run along pretending that everything's okay. Am I saying there are no progressive minds? No, there are some, but they're the very, very ultra minority. We want to act like this life is widespread. And I think this Stephen King incident is a perfect example. And again, this is why I don't like the term white supremacist, because they love that term. That's their term. Why the hell are we using that term? He said white nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? They love that term. There's nothing supreme about them. Can we drop white supremacy as a term that we use as non-white people? I mean, like I said, you use any term you like: white tyranny, white insanity, white aggression, white pandemoniumism, just a state of being crazy and out of control. White barbarianism, you call it whatever you like, but I'm going to need it to not be positive. Let's not have it be supremacist, okay? Let supreme not be a part of the term. Can we come up with some new language? I mean, these are the two things I would like us to do. Heck, if this makes me want to make a whole nother video. I want us to stop using the term white supremacist. I'm gonna need us to get a new term. Like I said, white barbarianism, that's a good one. White tyranny, white pandemoniumism, the state of whites just being out of control, unhinged. We could come up with something. I'm gonna need us to drop white supremacists and come up with a new term for this life, because they like that word because it makes them feel good. He's talking about why is that offensive? Okay, we're using it like it's offensive, and he's talking about why would it be offensive? You know, how did that language become offensive? When did white nationalists, white supremacists, and Western civilization become offensive? All those things are good, and we think we could take the word and make it something negative. No, I'm gonna need us to kill the words white supremacist in 2019 and come up, like I said, I'm with white barbarianism. I'm with that one. I like that one. But I don't know, maybe you guys have some suggestions. Include your suggestions. Can we come up with some terms that adequately describe what's going on? Because supreme and supremacist and supremacy, that does not accurately describe their behavior, right? That doesn't accurately describe this comment. They're not supreme. I like tyranny. I like barbarianism. I think that really describes it. White barbarianism. We live in a system of white barbarianism. The behavior they exhibit is white barbarianism. I think that that's very accurate considering some of the things that they have done. And the other thing I want us to do is I want us to come up with a term for ourselves. You know how the Jews have anti-Semitism? You know how they have a word? We need to get a clever word: anti-negroism. We need our own special word. I'm telling you, we need to start taking notes. We really do. I was on George Macon's. He had a good show. He did it in 2 parts yesterday. And I was like, we need to start playing victim every time somebody tries to attack us for complaining about racism. We need to do like the Jews do. Go ultra victim on them. Go crazy. Oh my goodness. Our ancestors were burned and hung from trees in this country. They sent around postcards of them. Just 50 years ago, you were hosing us down. They're murdering our boys in the street. We are not safe and protected by our own officials. You want to use our oppression to liberate other people, but we are not liberated yet. This is anti-negroism. It is time this country faces up to the things it has done wrong. We don't want this pretend outrage. We want real progress. I'm telling y'all, we need to start pulling out all the stops and change our whole mindset. Our whole entire mindset. We need to start playing the games that they're playing. But what we also need to do is not shut up these racists. There's no need to be outraged by what Steve King said. I commend Steve King for his honesty. Can everybody be as honest? I commend Steve King for saying white nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? I commend him for that. I think he did a good job. I'm with Steve King. I like him. Okay? I like him. I like people like him. Be they black, white, purple, or green. I like people who know how to not be politically correct, because I need to know what kind of person you are. And while you're being fake, I can't do that. We all want to feel good because all over the news, they are dragging this man. But you're feeling good for something fake because the same people that voted him down, the same people that voted him down 24 hours later met on camera in a federal facility with an actual white supremacist. And they weren't giving him a spanking, okay? They were chumming it up with a real white supremacist. The same people that were denouncing him. So we want this fake outrage, but I think that we should just let people do what they do. We should make people feel comfortable speaking their mind so we can stop walking around in a flipping delusion. I think that that is essential. So honestly, Steve King says that they're trampling on his First Amendment rights, his right to free speech, or his Second Amendment, one of these amendments that nobody cares about, nor follows, nor appreciates. Right? He's whining and complaining and throwing a mini fit. And I think that he is justified in his feelings because nobody should shut him up. Nobody should shut him up. He should be allowed to talk all the crazy racism he wants. He should be allowed to talk it during his job. Because I think it would do people a lot of good to hear the truth. He said there is an unprecedented assault on his freedom of speech. And I completely agree. We should not be infringing on his freedom of speech. The thing is, we don't want anybody to say anything, but they're still thinking it and they're still acting on it. Right? The First Amendment. The first thing we can do is say what the heck we want to say. And you guys want to stop him because you don't like him telling the truth? He's telling you the heart of all of Iowa. And you know what the other thing that disturbs me about this story is because of the fact that almost all of Iowa's representatives are white, because he is always elected by more than 50%, they are trying to double back and make it like everybody in Iowa doesn't think like him. Like this is not a common feeling in Iowa and he doesn't represent the people, right? They're going to try to brush this under the rug when he's been talking like this for years and they keep electing him. So I don't know. That's what I have to say on this issue. There's some other lives that I want to do today, but my synopsis for this live is this. I don't care what Stephen King said or what Steve King said. Representative Steve King and his statement about white nationalists, white supremacists, and Western civilization, how did that language become offensive, is all right with me. I'm good with it. Yep. And I feel that everybody should be able to speak their mind as openly as he did, and I encourage it. But I also think as the takeaway as Black people, as non-whites, that we need to take away from this statement is that we need to throw away the term white supremacist.
That language become offensive.
I am in favor of using white barbarianism, white tyranny, and white pandemoniumism, but you might have some ideas. I just feel like we need to drop the term. I told y'all, I have been saying it, and I know other people have said it too, that they like the term white supremacist. Even though there's nothing supreme about them. It's like one of their favorite terms. So we need to really stop using it. It doesn't insult them. They like it. He's upset that it's become offensive. He thinks it's a good thing. Can we get another term? Again, I'm with white barbarianism. I think that is, I like that one, me personally. I also need us to develop a term for ourselves, like the anti-Semitism term. I'm with anti-negroism. I know it's cheesy, but I feel like words have power, and so I feel like on a few levels it can be effective. Do you know what I'm saying? You might have a different term, but we need our own term for discrimination specifically against Blacks. Because now, with racism and minority and, being so inclusive, we don't have anything of our own. See, the Jews knew they had to get something of their own to identify the special sort of hatred that they feel is directed toward them. We need something of our own too. So we can monopolize on rhetoric and identify rhetoric and shame rhetoric, right? Wink, wink. That is negative about us. We need our own word. And the last part of my synopsis is going to be this, and then I'll look at the comments, you guys, because I haven't looked at the comments. The last part of my synopsis is going to be this. Do not be moved by all this condemnation of this man. Please do not be moved by it. And I'll tell you why. Because the same people that were voting him down, feel just like he does. And to prove my point, I go back to the actions of his fellow Republican senators who met with Chuck Johnson the very next day after they denounced him on the floor in a federal building. They were chumming it up with an actual white supremacist. So they were comfortable with voting him down because that makes all of us feel good, like they did something. But then they went back to their white supremacist business, right? They went back to that business. And this is what I'm talking about. This white barbarianism must stop, okay? But it's not going to stop with us being fake and trying to pretend it doesn't exist and just letting them cast a vote and denounce one of their own, because they'll denounce them on the floor for the cameras, and then they walk out with their other white barbarianisms or other white barbarians, right? I have to, it's new terminology. I have to figure out how we convert it, right? They go with their cohorts in white barbarianism right after they denounce one of their own. They turn around the next day and have a meeting, okay, in public in a federal building. Did you follow me? That's what they did. They denounced him on the floor, and then 24 hours later, they sat down and had a meeting in a federal building with their own kind. A known white barbarian. They sat down with Chuck Johnson. Two Republican lawmakers sat down with Chuck Johnson, and they chopped it up with him after they denounced Steve. And so the fakery, like, I'm not with it. The fake outrage, I'm not with it. The pretending, I'm not with it. And that's why they should be encouraged and not discouraged. Like, we're discouraging them from being honest. And how is that going to help anybody? That's not going to help anybody. See, attacking this man was a bad idea because now they're hiding. Or not really. I mean, honestly, I'm shocked that they literally had a meeting in a federal building. I'm shocked that they literally had a meeting in a federal building with Chuck Johnson. I mean, I just can't. Like, it's very jokey. But with that said, well, I agree with Taz. All white people don't represent themselves in the same way that Steve King did. But this is what I'll say, Taz. I'll say this. For me, when I am personally measuring a white person, I feel like if I can't have the conversation I just had with you guys with a white person without them being able to engage in the dialogue, without getting on the defensive, then that's somebody that I give the side eye, right? It really is. I just feel like as long as a white person can converse honestly, be them against, because again, we know that there are white people that were lynched alongside the many more blacks that were lynched because they were sympathizers. We know that there were white people before the final alliance with the Black Panthers. Early on, there were white people that marched with the Black Panthers. We know that there's always sympathizers. There's always white sympathizers. Even the lady who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, for all her twisted, warped theology, was a white sympathizer. So we know that there are white sympathizers. We know that they oppress their own, too. We know this. So I agree with that. They're all not part of that system. But I think you'd be surprised how internalized it is and how widespread it is. If they don't have the power, the mindset, which is why the poor of them have such a high suicide rate. They did studies that show that they know they have the expectation that they should be moving forward in life, and when they don't, they commit suicide. There are some studies on this. I think I cited them in some of my videos. Meanwhile, Taz, my man found your Pale Pookie project. He finds that like literally amusing. The fact that you called it Pale Pookie, he was like on the floor. He just thought that was brilliant. Oh, Cynthia's here too. I didn't see Cynthia. Oh, hi, Cynthia. Yeah, so that's what I had to say on this. I don't know if you guys want to say anything on it. You can. I was going to move on, but that was where I came with it. I just want us to not use the term white supremacy because this fool, Steve King, he has made it clear that they really love that term. I like white barbarianism. Taz he's pooing on my word, you know. But Taz, I like white barbarianism. I like white pandemoniumism too, but I feel like that doesn't really roll off the tongue, you know. Can we come up with a new term? Because Steve King, he's upset. They want to embrace the term and people are trying to use it against them. It's like, when did this become offensive? No. So that's where I stand on that. And also, I think that we need to not be moved by all of, like I said, the fake outrage. The two of them went and met with some white supremacists 24 hours after they denounced Stephen King. So what's with the fake outrage? I vote we just let them say whatever they want to say. We need to stop dragging people every time they say something we don't like. I think that's essential. Nobody will ever tell what they really feel if every time they open up their mouths, they're getting attacked. We will never know who is what if every time they try to tell us how they feel, they get attacked. You missed most of it, educated smoker. I invited Cynthia and Taz up if they'll come up. They might have something to add to it. But otherwise, I'm literally done because that's pretty much all that I have to say about it. I don't mind Steve King. He's cool. I'm with it. I wish more people were like him. I do think he proves my point about the term white supremacy, though. Like, we need to come up with a new name. Oh, you're coming up? Okay. And I also want to point out that do not be moved by the fact that they voted him down, because like I said, while we had Tim Scott, a full-on Black man, an only Republican senator, caping for the Republican Party, 24 hours after the Republicans helped to vote him down, they went and met with a known white supremacist in a federal building. They were hanging out with him and chumming up with him and smiling and kicking it up together. So what was the outrage for? Like, that was very fake. And I feel like we're just way too comfortable with the fakeness, right? We're too comfortable with the illusion that somebody actually cares that this man said what he said. Who is that? Oh, how you guys?
Hey, dog, I gotta challenge something, man. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with calling it white supremacy, because when I say it, I'm specifically referring to the system that there's nothing I can do about. Now, this white motherfucker that just walked past my car, I beat his ass. He's not white supremacy. He's not supreme in no way, shape, or form. So I don't think it refers to people. When I say it, and I think when most people say it, it's not referencing your average Joe. But a motherfucker like Stephen King, see, he's not Stephen King, but Steve King. Steve King is a representative of a state. He's part of that structure that I define as white supremacy. So, like, especially when I'm speaking to him, I would have to make the distinction between the power he can exhibit versus the power this cracker that just walked past could. You know what I'm saying? That's why I refer to it as white supremacy, because I can show their supremacy and dominance over centuries, over the people. So, you know what I'm saying? It's not individuals, it's the system itself that's supreme. And they run it.
Yeah, I was going to agree with Taz, because I don't refer to it as the actual people either. I refer to it as the system. When I'm referring to individual white people, I call it white degeneracy. But, the system is something different. And I think white people like to flatter themselves by thinking that they are the system. And it's like, but you're not, though. You're just one degenerate caveling within a society. Unfortunately, the system and the structure within the society does treat them in a supreme way, though. But I think we all know that they're not supreme. They can't even really name anything that's supreme about themselves.
Why can't we call it like white tyranny? Isn't that a happy middle ground? White tyranny.
Well, see, I can agree with that, because but check me out. This is where it becomes a problem, though. The tyranny doesn't define the power. There's absolutely white tyranny, but to me, you know what I'm saying, that the power part of it, the systematic oppression, that's the part of it where it's like tyranny doesn't really do it justice. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't think we can play around with that term. Like, it's one of those where if we don't know what we're dealing with, will we ever deal with it correctly? So it's like the tyranny is there. So that's put your guards up. That's know what they'll do to you. That's look at their history. But I'm saying, like, that doesn't define going to the polls and voting for these motherfuckers. That doesn't define the trust and belief when these white motherfuckers in these offices that niggas exhibit by going vote for them. That's not tyranny. That's niggas trusting that shit. That's not, I wouldn't say that's niggas trusting white tyranny. I would say that's niggas trusting the white supremacy. You see what I'm saying?
I don't know. Every time I just hear white and supremacy merge, I go cringing.
Well, it is a cringing word, but the whole point of the system is to treat white people in a supreme manner over Black people. That's what the whole function of the system is for, and that's why they need the system, because it's giving them privileges because they're not supreme. It's a compensatory system, obviously, but the whole point of it isn't to just engage in tyranny. It's to engage in tyranny in order to maintain being able to treat white people in a supreme manner to everyone else. And that's what they're doing. So it's like, to not, I don't care whether they like it, whether they feel like it's a good word or not, they can't justify how they would be supreme in any means other than this system. But the system is what it is, though.
Anti-crap said white imperialism. He said he liked that one. Anti-crap, I hope you're a dude, because I just called you a guy. White imperialism is good. Okay, we may not agree. Western autocracy. Okay, that's autocracy. Autocracy. Western autocracy. See, people can come up with words. Okay, you guys can say white supremacist. A little piece of me will die inside every time you say every time you say it. I'm going to come up with a term, though, that you guys are going to accept. Okay, like I'm on a mission to come up with
he said, who just said they melt like butter, so they not supreme. Well, see, the counter to that would be these motherfuckers melt like butter. They have recessive genes and they're dying off, yet they're in power. That's the supremacy aspect of it, dog. We're like we know that they're not even physically stronger than us, yet we're not dominant in this system. That's the supremacy, dog. It's you know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't see how you can get away from it when they're ahead of us in all systematic measurable facets. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, I agree with the not telling ourselves that they are supreme to us, but when it comes to that system, I just don't think we should be playing around telling motherfuckers it's not them and just them running it. I don't think we should play with that. That's them. They've been running it. They've always been that way. That's why shit is fucked up now. I don't think we should play with that.
Well, I don't think we should either, Taz. I think to do that is for us to be engaging in the emotional reaction we get from the notion that they might be supreme. But the reality of it is how many Black people actually engage in behaviors that reinforces the notion that they're supreme. Because if they can dominate and subjugate you for as long as they've been doing it to us, and still have the majority of Black people defending them, desiring them, making excuses for them, putting them on a pedestal, trying to mimic them, then in one breath we're saying, oh, they're not supreme to us, but in the next breath we're giving them privileges and courtesies that we don't even extend to people that look like us, thereby showing that they are supreme to us by action, because we're depriving each other of things that we give to them without them even having to reciprocate anything. So to me, it's interesting how Black people, more than anything, next to white people, Black people reinforce white supremacy on everyday behaviors. Like, I can't watch you might even have some people in your comment section, Irene, defending them in your comment section for no reason, like attacking other Black people over them. What does that say about them? That has to say that they're supreme if they have a system of subjugation and you still have Black people defending them and wanting to have children with them and just doing, like, our entire mentality and the way that we approach and deal with white people says that they are supreme. And so it's interesting how we do that. We say, oh, they're not supreme to us, they're not supreme to us, but you treat them better than you treat your own people. So how are they not supreme? They get to do everything that they've done to you, and you still forgive them. You still want to love them. You still give them the benefit of individuality while you typecast and generalize your own people. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
I guess that's why I feel like, so my man does something that, like, I really had to get used to. Depending on the situation, he will say that he overstands, right, versus understands, because of the meaning of the word, right? And so I feel like, in a way, because words have meaning, that you can reprogram a person's mind when you when you are mindful of the words that you're using. And actually, I'm gonna give just a really quick example of something that actually happened in my house yesterday that I had to correct. And as of today, I could say that it's pretty much corrected. So my daughters were making dolls, right? And it's funny because, you know, most books are written from a white perspective, and my children can't watch TV, so they read. There's not a lot of books for Black children. So although we do have several of them and we search them out, there's a lot of reading they do and the authors are white. And there are a lot of things in this society, you know, like angel's food cake versus devil's food cake, right? Being Black being negative and white being positive, that are that on a psychosomatic level train your mind. So my daughter was making paper dolls, and she had made a bad witch and a good witch, right? And she had made all these paper dolls, and some were brown and some were white. But the best one was white. And I said, why? She's like, well, all the good witches are always white. Right. And I said, well, why would you think that? And we sat down, we talked about it. And I said, understand, you know, Elizabeth, that who runs Western society? She's like, white people, right? And I was like, so they make themselves always the good guy. I said, if I ran society, then the blonde-haired, blue-eyed would always be the bad guy, right? I would always make the person that looks like me the good guy. So they've gone and they've revamped their whole paper doll collection. They're playing this elaborate game all over my house right now, where all of their dolls look like them or like me. So all the dolls are brown. Some have green eyes. Some have brown eyes. There are no white dolls anymore.
But listen. Let me use that example to expound on my point, though, because you having to teach that the white witch ain't shit is the point of white supremacy being existent. Once you teach it, now white people are no longer supreme to the person you taught it to. But at that moment, when you were being told, you heard and I heard when you explained it that that child or that adult, because I didn't catch who was talking, but that person had the mindset of a white person being supreme or white in itself being supreme. That's taught to us, though, and through propaganda, a lot of times indirectly. And so breaking that mindset won't break the system. But I'm saying the system creates that mindset. So it's existent. So to change it from white supremacy to something else will not define it, and it won't help the understanding of it. What you did in that situation was made it understood. But until that moment, it would never be. And that was what white supremacy is.
I agree. And here's the thing, I do agree with you, Irene, that words have power, but they don't have more power than actions. So even if Black people just shut up and kept their mouths closed, their actions would still be what they are. And their actions would still reinforce white supremacy. And their actions would still pass. This is why do you think it is white people get offended by the notion of Black love? They get offended by the notion of Black love because this is something that Black people don't promote. We promote in our community, Black people promote interracial love more so than they promote Black love, which means that they believe it's better to be in a partnership with a white person or a non-Black person than it means to be with a Black person. And that would be the case even if we didn't have any swirler talking about anything, even if no swirler was demeaning the men or the women when they date out, their actions and behavior would still say this person is better than a Black person because this is what I'm choosing. And I'm choosing that within the context of a society where these people that I'm choosing as my partners are a part of the group of people who have been oppressing me for at least 400 years. So the thing of it, because that's just what the reality is. And I think a lot of people don't understand that because someone said, oh, words are the beginning of actions. No, they're not. Your subconscious thoughts and belief patterns are what determines your actions. That is what determines what's going on in your mind is what determines your action. You don't have to say anything. I can walk silently to my car and not say anything. I'm still going to get in the car and drive it. My words, I don't need to say I'm getting in this car and I'm about to drive it in order for me to go drive the car. That's in my mind. I already know that this is what I need to do. When I get in there and you memorize routes, it's not because you're repeating them over, it's because your subconscious just recorded the route. So now it becomes a natural behavior to you. So I think that people don't understand how, in the grand scheme of things, words actually have very little power. They have power, but not in comparison to what you are thinking and what you are doing. That's where that's where it needs to be addressed, because a lot of Black people don't run around and proclaim that they have self-hatred and that they prefer white people to Black people. Very few Black people actually speak that, but they sure do behave in it, in the matter that they they act it out. They show white people that they do. They show society that they do. So that's the thing, is we're not considering, when we think about calling them, it wouldn't matter whether we call them supreme or not. They're getting the message from our behavior that they're supreme to us. And it's because we reinforce it with what we do every day.
Well, I definitely agree with that. I think that there was an interesting concept, and this actually provoked me to start collecting reference books. A lot of you guys know I collect antiquarian reference books, because word and how knowledge and the presentation of that knowledge, how it has morphed over time is really fascinating to me. So in 1984, this is what prompted me to start my reference book collection, right? They were talking about how they limited thought by deleting words out of dictionaries and phasing them out of use in common vernacular, and also changing the words. So for example, in that book, The Ministry of Love was actually a war agency, right? They actually fought wars, but it was called the Ministry of Love. So I think that both things, right? I think that we can really confine a person's thought process and their scope of thinking if we confine language, right? But I do agree with Cynthia that also action has a lot to do with it. The two things run hand in hand. But psychosomatically, we can imprint ideas and beliefs in people's minds by the words that we use, which is why I was using, like, in our culture, good things are white and bad things are Black in our culture. And that is widespread throughout our culture. And we make that association because the people in power are white and they have control over the words and the phrases that are used to describe things that are good and describe things that are bad. And so we've internalized that to some extent, which is why I kind of felt like having a word like white tyranny would still indicate, or something else. I'm gonna find some word that y'all are gonna love. Trust me, I'm gonna be on a mission. But you know, where that indicates the power structure, right? But in a negative connotation, right? Because supreme is something that is positive, right? When we think of something that is supreme, it's over something else, and it's in a positive connotation. Supreme is almost never viewed as
but see,
negative.
that's what I'm saying though. But we talk in context though, because when I say you lynched us, you redlined us, you target us, you profile us, none of that is positive. You know what I'm saying? So the context of it is what's important. Now, if we're just talking the one context of supreme being better than me, then absolutely you would be right. But the context of it is everything. And so my thing is, how far in depth are you thinking? You know what I'm saying? Not you personally, but I mean, just when we're having a conversation like this, or like when you're thinking, are you creatively thinking? You know what I'm saying? Because like, there's no excuse for that. Like, to me, you should be able to look at this shit and see we ain't running shit.
Well, so, and the thing of it is in terms of implanting messages in people's minds, symbols and images are actually more effective in conditioning a person's mind than words, unless you're doing it in a hypnotic form. But otherwise, symbolism and imagery is more effective in putting thoughts in people's minds. But if words were that powerful, we wouldn't live in a society, especially among our community, where our words and actions are in constant contradiction. We'll say one thing, we do a complete other thing. So if your words were guiding your actions, then we wouldn't be living in contradiction, because simply by Black people saying, oh, Black people are waking up, does not mean that we are. We're in a coma. Me, you, and Nyla were just talking about it the other day, how there's something wrong with Black people and the way that we act. Now, we won't say that there's something wrong. I see a whole bunch of Black people running around talking about Black first and Black empowerment, but then these will be the same one who will be on another post defending white people. So clearly your words are not that powerful, or else by Black people simply speaking these things, it would put our actions in alignment with our words, and we're not. We live in contradiction. This is why nobody takes us seriously. We can say we're waking up, but do you really think anybody else in society believes that we're waking up? I don't think anybody see us as waking up, because if they saw us as waking up, they would respond to it in a different manner. They
I
wouldn't
was
be
gonna say
going about it as if, oh, I got them exactly where they want us.
they saw
We're
it.
not waking up.
We're not saying they saw the wake up, and that's why they were able to monetize it with all of this Black propaganda that began to make money all the way down to Colin Kaepernick. You know what I'm saying? They saw it,
Well,
but
they
they was
saw
able
that
to
Black
use
people
it.
were interested in. They saw that Black people were interested in the trend and the concept of us being empowered and
The
us
fad.
being awakened. Yeah, it's a fad. But when you it's a fad because you can look at our actions and compare them to Black empowerment and what that will look like, and you see a complete different picture. So it can't be that we're waking up, because we can't even wake up enough to understand that defending those who oppress us is not beneficial to us. We
Wait,
haven't even woken up to that yet.
this dude said, "Who are we expecting to see us waking up?" Shit, white supremacy.
That's an idiot right there. See, this is what
But
I'm talking about.
but
No waking up at all. Hey, Nyla.
but like, cause like this the thing though about this quote unquote woke shit. Okay, they fucked all these words over. Woke, conscious, pro-Black. Like all of those words have their own personal meanings for people. Nigga, come and talk to me, and I'll tell you what you sound like to me. I don't even like using a lot of them terms no more, because people throw their own meaning on shit. Either you with this shit or you ain't. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people's mindsets will show within a 5-minute conversation.
Yep. And see, that's what they don't get, Taz. That's what I was trying to get them to understand. Your mindset is responsible for your words and your actions. Your subconscious is what's making you say the things that you say and do the things that you do. So it's not the words that holds the power. It's what you have in your mind, what you believe, because you're going to act on your belief system. And most of the time, you're not even consciously aware. That's why we call it the subconscious, because you're not consciously aware of the fact that you are operating based on these certain mindsets and mentalities. And the reason that you're operating on them is because you've been giving these images. When they show white good, Black bad, they don't have to flash it on the screen and put it in words. All they have to do is show you an image of Black being bad and white being good. That's why they never come out. Well, they do come out and they say it, but they mostly show it. Like when you have a Black person who is in a situation where they commit a crime, mental illness isn't the narrative. Cultural pathology is. They'll show you these when a white person commits a crime, they show you the most loving, kind, caring photo of them. So that image of them is sticking in your mind. This was a loving, kind person who cuddled with dogs. When it's a Black person, they'll go find a picture of them looking menacing because they want that image of them being menacing to fit that crime. Excuse me. Let me go choke to death. I'll be right back.
Oh
Hey,
gosh.
Irene, could you tell me something? Because somebody else said it in the comments, and I heard you say it too. Why do you think supremacy is a positive word or a good word? Why do you think supremacy like has always like a positive context over it?
Why do I think that?
Yeah.
Because whenever we see it in context and how we're raised, when we use it, it's always in a positive connotation. In fact, the only time I've ever heard supreme used in a negative way is when Black people use it with reference to white supremacists. and white supremacy, because when white people even use the term, they mean it in a positive way. So I've never heard supreme used and it be negative. Have you ever heard it in a context other than how we're using it now, where supreme is negative?
Yeah.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Well, again, a perfect example would be the lynching of black men. That's white supremacy.
Well, no, I'm saying my point is that other than when we, in this context, as Black people, use the term white supremacy, there's no other way I've ever heard supreme used where it is negative. It's always positive in every piece of literature, in every dictionary, in every sentence I've ever seen in my whole life. It's always positive. The only time it's negative is when Black people use it to refer to white supremacy. Because even when white people use the term white supremacy, it's not negative. So that's why when you were asking me, like, why do I think supreme is positive? I'm saying because I've never seen it used in the English vernacular in any negative way other than when Black people use it in regard to white supremacy. And that's why I said I feel it's hard for us to disconnect a word that always means something positive, always, always, always. And then in one connotation, it means something negative only when Black people are saying it. Because it doesn't mean something negative when white people say it. It only means something negative when we say it. So
Right.
it's possible that we
So
can.
what you're saying is, because I mean, I can actually agree with that up to the point where you're saying now that's why we should change it. If we've been able to redefine the context of a word to simply our own understanding, why then we go back and change it to make sense for a white motherfucker? No matter how what we say makes them feel, if there's an understanding throughout the community that there is no supreme context of positivity, why is it that we would change it for someone else to be okay with it?
But supreme is a neutral term that's being used positively because it really has no positive meaning to it. It simply means that you're superior to everyone else. And if you're able to dominate someone, then in essence you are superior to them. You are. The dominance may be wrong. The dominance could be evil. You can have supreme forms of evil, supreme forms of manipulation. You can have any of those things. It's not necessarily a positive word. It's been marketed with white people with the superiority and the positivity, because when they say it, they are saying they're better. They're saying we're supreme to you, we are better than you, and they are reinforcing it socially. And
If
Black
words
people are
cast
helping to
spells, we need
reinforce
to
it.
cast a spell to end white supremacy. Because that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't believe in the power of words in reference to a system. Like the power of words between us, yeah, they powerful. But when you start talking about what we call in a system,
Right?
I don't give
No.
a fuck what we call it. It's gonna remain what it is.
And that's the thing that they don't understand. Black people's actions are going to help it remain what it is. So if Black people don't think that white people are supreme, whether we say it or not, why do you treat them like they're supreme then?
Right.
That's what I want to know.
Why ain't you going to your job interview in a pair of Jordans like, what up, bruh?
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, like, I feel like, okay, let's say if we have control, let's say if we actually had control over the dialogue, which to some extent we do in our own homes, right? And amongst ourselves. I feel like, for example, in my house, my girls know the rule for chess is that white goes first, right? When you play with other people, that's how everybody plays. In our house, Black goes first, okay? I was saying, like, after that conversation with my daughters yesterday, I wanted to compile like a firm list so that I could reverse a lot of terms in this house and demonstrate to them and deprogram them from a lot of what they're reading in some of the books that we're getting, like from the library and stuff like that, so that they're aware of it. So I feel like if we had control, we actually would change a lot. But I also agree with Cynthia that it's also visual symbolism, right? That is important too. And in the symbolism conversation brings me to a question I want to ask you guys, which is, do you have a problem with what Steve King said? Do you feel he should have been censored? And how do you feel about the fact that the Republicans were denouncing him, and then 24 hours later, they were in a federal building meeting with a known white supremacist.
What did he say? I didn't,
Uh,
other than the thing about the civilization with the white struggle gene babies that they clearly can't create.
Yeah, so what he said essentially was white nationalism, white supremacy, and white and Western civilization. When did that language become offensive? That's what he said.
Well, I don't. Why would he be condemned for simply asking a question, though?
Well, he was. Yeah, they're trying to. They're trying. Well, they
PC
literally
culture.
denounced him. Yeah, they voted him down. Even the Republicans voted him down. But like I said, then 24 hours later, they were in a federal building meeting with Chuck Johnson, the same Republicans that voted him down, on camera, mind you. So they voted him down, but they're still rocking. They're still rocking with the racists of society.
Right, and that's the difference between words and actions, because they may be saying that they're renouncing them, but their actions are showing that they're not. And since we clearly don't even have a concept of the fact that your words and your actions should match all the time, we seem to think because someone makes a vocal declaration of something, then that's the end all be all. And that's clear by the chat room saying, "Oh, words have power, words have meaning." Well, nobody said that they didn't have meaning. All words have meaning, and to an extent they have power, but their words' power is limited. The power of the word is very limited, especially if it's not backed by action. If it's not reinforced by action, the word is meaningless. That's what a lot of people don't understand. White people are not just saying that they are supreme, they are reinforcing it and backing it by action. I don't think any Black person would care if they just ran around and said they're supreme. They know they can't just run around and say they're supreme. They know they have to have some action behind it. They have to have some way to reinforce and show that they're supreme. And they do it every day in their actions. And now they're not doing it by themselves. The main victims are doing it with them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference.
That's what
And
I
that's
say,
what Black
man.
people don't do.
Yeah, it's crazy that I mean, these motherfuckers control that media. So you know what I'm saying? Like what you see is what they want you to see. I try not to get too caught up in what they're showing. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to figure out what they're not showing.
Yeah, my thing is that even with Tim Scott, I believe that's his name, Tim Scott, and what he was doing, being the only Black Republican, right? Senator, and saying that there was the appearance that their party was racist because they don't speak up against things, instead of just accepting, like there's always somebody, right? Instead of just accepting that they are racist. And I feel like we should actually have promoted and encouraged and been more vocal as a community that we don't care what he said. Because I think it would be a better political climate if everybody was just very honest about how they feel and where they stand, so that people can stop living in a delusion. I feel like a lot of people feel that there's not a problem because, you know, you get the fake outrage and then you get the fake condemnation, and then people go about their lives seeing, see, you know, people don't really feel that way. This is an isolated incident.
That's white supremacy, dog. I'm trying to tell you, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the point. That's not, define that within tyranny or overseerism. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
I feel like
they
that
control the mindset of motherfuckers. Like it's like we ain't just talking about exhibiting the power. They telling motherfuckers how to think, dog. You know what I'm saying? Like they give motherfuckers their thought process.
Well, see, I think that's where I would disagree. I think that they control the power. I'll tell you why. I think that they control the power and the environment, but I think that we choose to engage that. So, for example, if you choose to sit your child in front of a television for 12 hours a day, and that's a choice you make, and they get indoctrinated mentally, that's a choice that you're making, right? We can also make the choice to do something other than that. And I think that's why I started my cognitive liberation series, because the thing is that your mind can be chained, but see, you have to acquiesce your mind, right?
You have to control what they read. You have to control the games they play. You have to control everything they see,
Or at least,
everything
or
they eat.
well, wait,
Like,
even if you don't control it, though, you have to not have it be a passive experience. I will expose my daughters to some things, but then we discuss it and we analyze it. I don't allow them to engage in things from a passive standpoint where they are simply assimilating information. I teach my children to be actually active participants in an experience. And I think when you're just passively experiencing and engaging in propaganda, then it makes it then you become indoctrinated, right? Because you're not looking at it with a critical eye. You're just assimilating. I mean, don't you think that that's necessarily true? And that's a way of acquiescing
I
your
agree with
mind,
that.
right?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. But what I don't agree with though is this concept that that these white motherfuckers ain't doing what the fuck they want to do, how they want to do it, and when they want to do it. Like, that system is in place and it's been running for years and years with no real actual pushback. So what I'm saying is, we can critically think all we want to, but from my level, the ability to push back ain't that high. It's not much I can do in reference to a Steve King comment. The only thing I can do is like try to talk to my people and try to make sure my people ain't consuming all of this CNN, Fox nonsense. That we try to look past what we're being told is important. Because keep in mind, that white boy comments ain't that fucking important. What's more important is to watch the mindset of those after the comments are made. Fuck the white boy and what he said. Let's watch the action.
That's so true, because notice that as soon as he made those comments, the first thing they tried to do was separate the voters in Iowa from him. Like, even though they're electing him at over rates of over 50%, and he's known to have these viewpoints, they wanted to separate the masses of people that put him in office, along with their over 90% completely white other elected officials. They wanted to separate all of them from that mindset and say this isn't reflective of the actual people in Iowa. But I would argue that it is reflective of the people in Iowa. So I think you're right. We should be looking at that because they're already trying to spin it. Because I think on some level they recognize that too, that he could be looked at as representative of literally, nearly 1 million people.
And I think Iowa is Iowa one of them states that's like 3 to 5% black, ain't it?
Yeah, Iowa was one of those states. When I told you guys I got arrested and they said I had drugs when I had the ingredients to make Play-Doh with a bunch of Montessori kids, I was in the Midwest. And it's like that out there. It's highly racist out there.
Yeah.
Highly, highly racist out there. What do you think about Tim Scott?
The same thing I think about the Congressional Black Caucus. I mean, I just I don't believe that. Well, let me say this first. I believe there was a time when people went into politics and thought they could change shit. And I just believe they got there, and probably even still to this day do. They get there and they realize that this system is what it is, and they're just doing a job and they better get what they can. I think that's what most of our black politicians represent. They just represent a nigga doing a job and working within the confines of white supremacy, not much different than when I go to work. They're not necessarily in position to change anything. That dominant society, that dominant culture, that structure that's over them, if they don't want it changed, it's not going to be changed. I just don't believe that historically all these black politicians weren't able to get much of nothing done because they didn't try. I refuse to believe that.
Hmm.
But yeah, and so he wouldn't be much different, I guess is what I'm saying. Like he's not there for me or you. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, I didn't like that he was trying to defend the Republican Party, talking about people think Republicans are racist because we don't speak up about these things. And I was like rolling my eyes like, people think Republicans are racist because a Republican says something racist. The Republicans fake denounce him, and then they go have a meeting with the white supremacist the next day. That's why people think. That's why people think Republicans are racist, because it looks very sketch. But
I mean, you know, it's. I mean, any black Republican is already questionable just based on the recent politics. Like they've gone a great distance to show that they're anti-black, and I mean not the entire party. But when you got actual Republican politicians running on "Make America White Again," okay, you're not going to be able to distance yourself from that white guy, ABL.
oh, is he still in the chat?
Yeah, I just want to make sure he understand that though. You got white Republicans running under "Make America White Again." You know what I mean? Like, so, you know, no matter how you try to spin that, that's representing what you represent.
Well, I like that campaign slogan, "Don't monkey it up." I thought that was funny.
or that one, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, if every single Republican elected to office don't come out against that shit, you got to deal with that shit. And don't ask me about no damn Democrats, ABL, because I'm not a Democrat.
Yeah, I'm not a Democrat
Democrats
either.
are worse
Yeah.
than Republicans.
Yeah,
Democrats
I'm not
are
a Democrat
even a
or
lot
Republican.
worse.
I feel like black people should start their own party. It should be called like the Black National Party.
Right. And see, that's the thing. This whole buying into this dumb bipartisan belief system as if you're not just dealing with two groups of white supremacy who express their white supremacy differently. Because ultimately the same thing is being accomplished. Neither one of them is going to go against the interest of white supremacy. That's just a reality. So if the end result is the same, I don't care whether I'm on the right or left side of it. Like, I don't care to deal with one of them are just more vocal than the other ones. Like, I don't even, I don't play the bipartisan game.
Well, I say being a black Republican is bad, but being a black Democrat, you have nothing to say. Dude, I just told you it's worse being a black Democrat because they've been running these black cities for years and ain't shit done. These black cities are fucked up and they being ran by Democrats. Some of them been ran by Democrats for 50, 60, 70 years. So Democrats are in a worse position than the Republicans because Democrats have been in power and they did shit. This ain't you ain't talking to them, bro. Like I get back up here, man, and take another ABL.
But even if you had a bunch of black Republicans doing it, the outcome wouldn't be any different. Like, are we really convincing? Like, I'm trying to figure out why ABL thinks that the bipartisan decision that black people choose to subscribe to, or the bipartisan party that black people choose to subscribe to, is going to have any impact on the outcome. The outcome isn't going to change. In order for this to be maintained, black people must be in an overall oppressive situation because that's how it started. I don't know how many times I have to tell people you cannot deviate from your foundation. Whatever you established it on is whatever you have to maintain it on. So ultimately, both sides have the same interest. They're just going about accomplishing it different ways. One of them sells black people a dream of this equality, and the other one not so much. But ultimately, whether you have black Republicans or black Democrats, the outcome is going to be the same because they're still going to have white handlers, and those white handlers still have the excuse me, same bottom line.
Are you getting a cold?
No, probably asthma.
She hitting that bud over there.
No, my asthma gets triggered by the cold. So that's what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, I think, ABL, that the Republicans and the Democrats are both evil sides of the same coin. Like, To be honest, I feel the Democrats are worse because they directly promote policies that are detrimental to the Black community. Like they're all out openly promoting genocide of black people. They're openly, creating policies or historically have created policies that were damaging to the Black community. They've openly sided with the Republicans to keep in place laws that disenfranchise Black people disproportionately. They've done this in the open, and they've done it with the co-signing of Black people and the Black vote, which is actually pretty astonishing to me, which is why I say we could create our own political party. I mean, people do it all the time. The thing is, I feel like we often don't want to get together on those sort of things. I'm voting for the Black Nationalist Party. I feel like that's what our political party should be named. And I feel that, we should back our own candidates. If we're going to play the game at all, I think we should play the game that way and not expect to get results. I mean, heck, how did that big-eyed, crazy-looking, what is her name? From New York, the crazy-eyed one, the young one, Cortez?
Oh, yeah, that wild one.
That's how she got, I mean, that's how she got elected. And actually, the speaker that my man had come to his MLK event, he talked about how he had literally gone door to door and just knocked 3,000 doors personally to get his candidacy and usurp the white man that had historically held the seat that he ultimately took. And I think we have to be willing to work at a grassroots level like that. Everything doesn't take money per se. Some things just take a little bit of manpower and grassroots effort, because at the end of the day, the people for those elected offices are who make those votes. Now, the presidential election is like a whole nother thing, but for the other positions, those are things you can get really far, especially if you don't live in a major metropolitan area. You can get very, very far just going out and knocking doors. And we could literally start, the Black Nationalist Party. I like that name, me personally, but y'all could come up with another one. And we could unify and, nobody's going to pay you, you know what I'm saying? But just getting bodies out to knock doors and push a candidate and shake hands and talk to our people so that they can get the vote out, dedicate our cars to taking our people, because we all probably have a car, right? To taking our people to cast their votes. Like if we do that within our community, if we're going to play that game, which I'm good with fighting it on all fronts, right? I'm good for coercive force and simultaneously, pushing in another direction, like as long as when it goes down, we're all together. I don't care how many fronts we fight this war on, but that would be a great way for us to move forward as a people and separate ourselves and get some people to pander to our causes. At least that's my personal opinion.
Where ABL at, man?
I don't know, because I don't have his email address. But Nyla, if you're in the chat, you can send it.
He put it in the chat.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, I want him to get up here. And
well, will you send it if you saw it? Will you send it?
I didn't write it down. Hey, put it down again, man. Put your email again.
Oh, I see it. Okay, hold on. I wasn't looking at the chat.
Yeah, man, there's people out here running on making America white again, man. I want to see how he trying to act like that ain't happening, man.
Well, he did say Obama made the "don't monkey it up" comment, but Obama wasn't pro-black, right? So he didn't make the White House black, did he? He made it a rainbow, so.
Yeah, but that Obama's a white supremacist to me too. So I don't give a fuck about Obama. That deflection shit ain't gonna work with me, man. I don't give a fuck about Obama and what he did. I can tear his ass to pieces too. But right now I want to understand why he doesn't distance himself from a party that wants to make America white again.
Why can't I see your thing, Snappy Turtle? I talked about starting your own party yesterday. Oh, did you? Snap Turtle? I haven't been
Yeah,
to that.
niggas have political parties, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know why we don't do that today, especially like in cities like Detroit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand that the average American city ain't full of black people, but the cities where like niggas like 80%, 70%, 60%, like those are the cities where there literally should be a black political party. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't know why it never, it never happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, there should literally be a black party representing black people from the grassroots level. And so we do all this talking on here, but like, I don't know nobody that live in Detroit other than like my little cousin. But like, I just don't get why they're not doing that. Why are Democrats and Republicans running cities where we're the majority, where we could actually put a candidate in office without question? There's not even a question in a majority black city. If you all go out and vote, who's going to win? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I do understand what you're saying. But we do have the numbers in a lot of places to do that. And then a lot of times, it's not like very many people of any race are voting that much anyway. So sometimes you can sway or split or, win or take, a seat or a position, an elected position, simply by showing up in numbers. Because everybody's not running out and voting. I mean, the presidential election is one of the ones that people really go out and vote for. The rest, not everybody is doing that. And I think even targeting like homes where the elderly are and things like that, they'll vote for black candidates. Helping them set up absentee ballots. I mean, that community outreach. I mean, it's going to take community effort. But
like
I think
if your city 80% black, it ain't no reason why white people should be anywhere in the political structure. And I would say even white political parties. Because like I say, if we talk in a city that's 80% black, because if I live there, just with my mindset, I would try to put together that political party. It's not that hard to do with the people. Your problems would come in with the documentation. But the people, like niggas is ready for that type of shit. You know what I'm saying? But the problem is we're not contesting it, man. There's no reason why there shouldn't be a black political party in a majority black city. That's just outrageous.
No, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. But I wonder what the voter turnout is in those cities.
But see, Detroit is I use Detroit because it's 84%. It just ain't no fucking way around that. I don't give a fuck what the voter turnout is. It's niggas voting. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just 84% black. Come on, man. That's, that's 9 out of 10 voters gonna be black, dog. You know what I'm saying? So it don't even matter what the turnout is. You don't even have the party to represent what we're talking about. Like it should be Democrat, Republican, and Black Panther Party or whatever, just like it was in Lowndes County in 1965. You know what I'm saying? Like, it should be that same way. All them niggas got to do is boom, start just like they did in 65, get on the 66 ticket. Yeah, they lost, but we're talking now in 84% black city. That I'm not sure they lose.
I'm mad that you guys gave RBR Radio or RB Radio a flipping platform, and now he's trying to come up here.
Nah, that didn't get up here. I'm out, man.
I'm not bringing him up here. I'm just making a point that this wouldn't even be happening because he comes to my channel, but he never asked to come on. He's only doing this because of y'all.
Well, yeah, no.
I don't like it either, but I can't tell people how to control their platform.
Yeah,
but
I thought it was interesting for 3 a.m, but like, no, not right now.
Well, yeah, not on a regular day, but his stupidity woke me up out of my sleep. It was just really It's like when you just hear somebody, when you just can visualize that you're trying to sleep, your name being drugged through just like hella dust, like a dust storm, then, that woke me up. And I'm like, well, why is this dude keep mentioning my name with his dust? Actually suggesting that I will watch one of his videos. That was just really interesting. How do you sleep through that?
I don't know, but his comments, they throw me off sometimes. So I wouldn't do it just because he's here and he's there in the comment section. No offense to you, RBR or RB, or I'm sorry, I don't know the name.
Well, definitely offense to you, and stop emailing me like we're friends when we're not. I don't care what you plan to make a video on. You don't need to email me and tell me that. I'm not like, we don't have a collaboration. Like I don't where does this dude get off? Huh?
He emailed you?
Yeah, he keeps emailing me, telling me about videos that he plans to do or what he plans to comment on. I don't care.
That's crazy.
Hey, ABL.
Yeah. What's going on? What's happening? Can y'all hear me?
ABL, what's good, man?
We can.
Justify your actions.
Nah, I mean, it was some interesting points being made. Y'all talking about having the black party, all this and that and the third. I mean, like, I don't really know where this is going. I mean, first of all, let's talk about a black party right quick.
Yeah, what do you feel about a conservative black party? Because I lean conservative, so a conservative black party.
Nah, hold on. Why are you putting conservative on top of that shit?
Because I'm not with the I'm not with the gays. I'm not about abortion. Like, there's things that I can't do.
There's a lot of conservatism that I align with as well.
Right. I mean, I would say me too. I'm a conservative man. I'm saying I'm definitely fucking liberal about shit.
Yeah,
I guess I'm saying, like,
conservative liberal, basically, right?
But before I guess before we get deep off into it, I'm saying, like, doesn't that put a white context on it already though? When we start adding conservative liberal to what's just supposed to be black.
Look,
I mean, why does it make it white? If I say that I'm conservative, why is that conflated with being white?
I just don't know why we can say that means something, but supremacy doesn't mean something. That's all I want to say.
Okay, so let me tell you why you conflated with being white as a conservative. Because again, a motherfucker in Tennessee ran on the banner of "Make America White Again" as a Republican.
Who did that?
The dude in Rick Tyler out of Tennessee.
Rick Tyler. What did he run for?
He was running for state rep, either state rep or maybe I don't even remember what he was running for. No, that's irrelevant. His campaign ad ran as "Make America White Again."
Oh no, okay, yeah, he lost though.
But we can go to George Bush. First of
all, he ran as an independent and he lost. He got stomped.
Ran as an independent?
You said what?
George Bush?
What about George Bush?
The Willie Horton ad.
What ad was that?
That's back in the 80s.
Okay, what was that? What did the ad have in it?
Reagan was making the welfare queen comment. I'm just giving you Republicans.
Okay, first of all, let's just address things one by one. Okay, Rick Tyler was an independent, not Republican or Democrat, and got stomped out by my rep. I live in Tennessee. My rep is Chuck Fleischman. I've met him before, good dude. So he got stomped by Chuck Fleischman. He actually did much worse than the Democrat Danielle Mitchell, who got like 34% of the vote. Rick Tyler only got like 1.8% of the vote, like 4,500 votes, compared to Chuck Fleischman, who got about 156,000 votes. So why even mention him? He was a nobody that wasn't going to win anyway. Okay. So it's like irrelevant, totally irrelevant. When you're talking about people that have racist viewpoints that are in politics, I mean, what about Hillary Clinton talking about black males as super predators in the 1990s? Okay. But yet and still, 90-something% of us voted for her in the 2016 election. So what's going on with that? I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. I don't disagree with the Hillary thing, but you're not talking to a Democrat. So I will agree with you on the entire gambit of Democrats. But what I don't understand is why you don't agree with me with the entire gambit on Republicans. Because
But
you're making it sound
what is
like
your
they're
viewpoint?
any less racist.
But what is your viewpoint though on
On what?
Republicans? On Republicans.
That they're the same as Democrats.
But how?
Because they're the other wing of the system that I would call the bird.
But explain it to me though. Like, what makes them the same?
They're the same because they're another political party that was made in this country. So the political parties that this country props up and forces into office are not what I would ever trust, whether it's the one on the left or the one on the right. The one in the middle is what made it.
Okay, but let's explain to me why the Republicans are the same as the Democrats. Let's get down to actual policy, because this is my strong suit. This is what I do every day for a living, politics. So if you're gonna talk about it, let's talk about it and have a real discussion. What makes
right? But
what makes the Republicans?
What you would be talking about is what you believe.
Hold on. What makes the Republicans policy-wise the equivalent to the Democrats? Do the Republicans push for abortion? Do the Republicans push for illegal immigration that's going to hurt you and everybody else in here and me? Do the Republicans push for the homosexuality like they did on television? Michael Strahan had an 11-year-old drag queen, a boy who's dancing in the bar, getting money from men, had him on there and was parading them around. Do we push that as Republicans? Do Republicans push the privity, like lack of morality, no religion, as Democrats do? Do we push that, or is that them? I'm just trying to figure out what's going on.
It depends on what you want to call it. That's you highlighting a few elements on the other side.
Okay,
but again, I can highlight elements that Republicans have done as well, including your president.
Give me some.
Give you some examples of racism from your president.
Give me some elements of things that the Republicans do that's bad that the Democrats also do, since they're the same.
That they also do. Okay, they also exhibit racist behaviors like ignoring black people when it comes to actual policy.
Okay, give me an example of that.
The 1 to 100 change to 1 to 18 ratio, that was a bipartisan effort. I'll give you an example, and I have some others.
Okay, so was that one example?
Yeah, you said one example, so that was one.
I mean, how was that
effort to
hold on.
Alive.
Well, how was it an example when we're the ones that are in favor of changing the law that the Democrats put on the books that made it that way? They made it to 100 to 1.
Right, but after multiple studies and multiple appeals to have that law overturned for a few decades, it was a bipartisan effort to not overturn it. So I'm not a Democrat, so I think the Democrats are crap, right? That would be an example that I would use for that.
But wait a minute, but hold on. We just did that with the First Step Act, though. We just did that. Like we enforcing something that was put on
that is an example, nonetheless. That went on for several decades, and it was a bipartisan effort.
That's not much different than the Fair Sentencing Act, man. Like these little incremental steps that y'all call make it 1-to-1.
So basically you're saying it's not really.
No.
So you're saying it's not really a big deal.
Let me finish what I'm saying, because I listen to you.
Let's get to the next topic.
I listen to you, bro. Now, we ain't gonna get to the next topic until you understand that until it's 1-to-1, it's not equal. While you're talking about pushing for legislation, these incremental steps towards 1-to-1 are somewhat meaningful. But why aren't you pushing for 1-to-1? What is it about the original system that was set up that you don't want to completely go against and take off the books and rewrite? Because there's no reason why crack cocaine should have any disparity.
Okay, so basically the Democrats put on the books of 100 to 1. We are retroactively going back and reducing a lot of those sentences that the Democrats put on the books to begin with. But since we have not gone far enough, then that's an example of us Wait, hold on, let me finish.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Since we have not gone far enough, that's an example of the Republicans being the same as the Democrats. I got it. Next thing.
No. I just want to clarify. It's not that for me, it's not that it didn't go far enough. It's that for many years, there were several studies and there were direct appeals, and this has come up before for decades. And for decades, it was a bipartisan effort to agree to not change the law, even though it's on record, right, that there was no justification. There was no justification for why there was a disparity. And that's what's on the written record.
Hey, well, let me make my point clear. It's not one-to-one, period. The Democrats took a chip at it. The Republicans took a chip at it. Neither one brought it down to where we needed to be. So yes, you're absolutely the same.
Well, that's
they
just
both
one
chipped
example.
away at it.
Who put the 100-to-1 law in the books to begin with?
The Democrats.
They both chipped away
Thank
at
you.
it. You said you wanted an example of them being the same.
That's not the question I asked. My question, Irene answered the question. Thank you, Irene.
Yeah, the Democrats put it on the record, but it was a bipartisan effort to let it stand.
Anybody listen to the playback and know that's what you literally just said, though.
So my other question is, if there was a Black, I like to call it the Black Nationalist Party. That's just my preference. And it was conservative leaning. Do you feel that Republicans like you would move to the Black Nationalist Party if it was aligned with your political ideals and had a focus on furthering the agenda for the Black community as a whole?
No, because there'll be no point in doing that. Why create another party that's conservative when there's already a conservative party in the United States? Doesn't make any sense. I just don't understand.
Because the conservative party doesn't work for the interests of Black people. That's not their focus.
I mean,
but
I think this is evident. I mean, when we think about
there's the Republican Party, there is no conservative party. Let's get that clear too. There's no such thing as the conservative party. You're a Republican.
Well, and
I'm not a Republican. I'm not registered as anything.
But the Republicans also haven't proposed anything that would benefit the Black community. So
yes, we have. Do you want some examples?
Whether it would be beneficial is debatable and subjective to whoever hears it. So the interesting thing is that, and when I say beneficial, this is what I mean. There are issues that disproportionately affect Black people, like the healthcare system disproportionately affects Black people in a negative way. We know that. Where was the legislation that the Republican Party proposed for that? We know the educational system is teaching a false history. You have Black children who are being taught by white women who are putting them in special education, indoctrinating them with inferiority, funneling them from the school to prison pipeline. What's being addressed about that? Where was the piece of ballot that got put on there? We know that it's disproportionately Black people are not being given home ownership loans. Where is the legislation to address that? These are the things that I'm talking about where none of their, because I looked over during the voting, I look over the ballots all the time because I'm looking at them to see what piece of legislation are they going to put on here that's actually going to make an impact, that's going to deal with some of these issues that are primarily affecting Black people. And there's never any piece of legislation on there. So if you have some that's going to specifically deal with these issues, please do list them.
How you feel about charter schools?
Because I'll vote Republican next time if they do, if they're going to put some to address those issues.
Do you vote?
I vote when it's meaningful to do so, but I haven't voted since I voted for Obama because there's been nothing for me to really vote for. I mean, Black women are being denied health care, which is causing them to die when they give birth to children, not because of their genetics, but because of the health care and the racist biasing within the healthcare system. You also have a lot of Southern states, and I can tell you that already, the way they frame the healthcare system is very different than the ones on the West Coast where they're predominantly white, which causes a lot of, and I've only been in the South for a couple of months, and I can already tell you just by the legislation and laws they make, not only do they disproportionately affect Black people, but it causes a lot of them, because of the way they frame it, they know
why you moved there? Why you moved there then?
Huh?
Why did you move to the South then?
Weather. The weather's better.
Oh,
the weather's better and there's more Black people. And it's cheaper. The cost of living is cheaper, so your money goes further. But it's very segregated. It's very segregated as well. I can already tell the way they get away with the segregation is by
where you from originally?
California, and then I lived in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
I can tell you all of the laws are nearly 100%. I can guarantee they're written with the fact that these are high populations of Black people. Vastly different legislation if you go to Washington or Oregon or other places that are predominantly white on the West Coast. Vastly different legislation.
California is worse. LA, why is California? Why is California 6% Black, but Skid Row with like 10,000 homeless people is 100% Black?
Well, but the thing of it is all of the states are disproportionately against Black people, and I'm saying certain legislature that they pass in certain regions of this country, you can tell they're writing them with in mind that this is a highly populated. Well, like for example, I'll tell you for example, if a person wants to go to Washington and get Medicaid, they simply just have to apply anywhere on the health insurance marketplace. All you have to do is just apply. They're not asking you to verify really too much information. You apply through the marketplace, you get the insurance. From what I've seen in the South, if you're dirt poor, or if you have, or if you don't reach a certain income level, you will not get. What they'll do is they'll give the tax stipends to the people who make more money. Like if you make more money, you can't be broke and get a tax credit. You can't get one. And I was talking to the health insurance market, and I was like, this is dumb. It doesn't make any sense, because I was playing around it and literally flexing it to see what type of tax credit I would get if I had no money versus if I made a certain amount. And I think that they don't even offer you a tax credit unless you make about $24,000. Okay, so who do you think is mostly going to be getting those tax credits, which is going to make the healthcare more affordable? That's not how it is in Washington. You just get a tax credit.
Okay, so I mean, just go to Washington. Like, you know, one thing I want to say right quick is a lot of people. Wait a minute, California has beautiful weather. It usually don't even rain. It's sunny all the time. What happens with people? They move from California because they probably got pushed out. Not saying that's you, but a lot of folks from California get pushed out. Then they come to Texas, they come to Georgia, they come to Virginia, they come to Florida. Wait a minute, hold on. They come there because it's better there. It's cheaper. It's safer. It's a lot of different things that make them move. And then they want to still have the same mindset and the same voting pattern that they did when they were in California. But they don't understand. But they don't understand that the way that things are in the South, with the rules and whatnot, is why it's the more attractive option rather than living in California.
No, because California, you're talking about vastly different cost of living. California is significantly more expensive than anywhere on the South.
That's right.
So like even with Seattle is way more expensive than anywhere I've been on the South, just by looking at what they offer for. First of all, you're going to get more for what you're paying for the rent, but the rent is going to be significantly less. I can already tell you that already. Seattle's becoming one of the most expensive places to live in this country, but even outside of Seattle, just to live in Washington state alone, it's more expensive than really any southern state that I've researched and known. The cost of living is higher. So
exactly, and it's a reason for that though. It's a reason why the cost of living is higher in California and Washington on the left coast in general. It's a reason for that. It's the laws that are on the books that cause it to be that way. Why is gas in California like $4 a gallon, but I just got it for like $1.80 something? It's because of the laws that are on the books. That's why. So the laws are on the books for a particular reason.
The laws are also on the book. They keep in mind that you can just tell that they are considering the fact that you have higher populations. You do know most Black people in this country is in the South and the East Coast, right? But mostly in the South. Most Black people in this country are in the South.
That's right.
Right. So you think that when they write these legislations for the South, you don't think they're taking that into consideration? You don't think that when they do the healthcare policies and the way that you get healthcare and Medicaid and things like this in the school systems, you don't think they're taking into account that this is where most Black people are?
Well, I think the laws are written for all the people that live in a particular area for the best benefit of those people.
The laws may be written a certain way, but it's about the enforcement of the laws, though. It's about the enforcement of them. So not only are they written a certain way, but then they're keeping in mind the enforcement of them, because they already know automatically, well, we can have these laws over here that says this because we know they're going to disproportionately affect Black people, because we know we're going to enforce them differently. So that's the thing that I'm talking about. The way that they frame them, because if you have just a certain healthcare policy that makes it easier in Washington state, that have a very small, minute population of Black people in comparison to the South that has a high population, who do you think is going to be mostly affected by it? Especially if most of the higher paying jobs are being given to white people, because we already know the workplace discrimination. So what you essentially do is you frame a healthcare situation a certain way. And this is just one example. And then, you know, based on systemic racism, that Black people are going to fall into a certain income level, whereas white people are going to fall into a certain income level. Because we know when they compare education and work history and stuff with Black people and white people are still being favored just because they're white in a workplace. That has been definitively proven. So if you're putting Black people in a certain income level, and you know that based on the healthcare system here, in order to get quality healthcare, if it's less affordable for Black people, because they're the least likely ones to get the tax credit because they're not falling into a certain income bracket, obviously that's going to affect Black people. Then you have them not getting quality healthcare, white people getting quality health care, because that is a very big issue. So how are the Republicans going to resolve that?
Resolve what? You said a whole lot right there. I'm not really sure what you want me to respond to.
All of it. How would they resolve all of it? All of the domino effects, because all of the things connect together. When you look at the
I'm gonna answer your question best way I can. I'm gonna answer you, Cynthia. I'm gonna answer your question. Now, here's the thing. The best way to help with the Black situation is to have the lowest cost of living possible, which is why you don't live on the left coast anymore. You over here with me in the South, which is the best place for us to be. Hold on. Let me finish. I'm answering Cynthia. I'm answering your question. So when you have a lower cost of living, it enables us to become more productive. This whole thing about trying to get a job, I keep hearing that a lot. If people say, oh, it's a lot of workplace discrimination, what is to stop a Black person from creating their own job, for being their own boss? You're able to do that when there's less oppressive taxes and expenses and stuff like that. You're able to hire more people, and you're able to have a productive company when you don't have so much illegal immigrant competition and stuff like that. You're able to do that in a more conservative place. And that's the whole point of the lower cost of living, is to be more productive, not just, because it's cheaper. Nah, it's a lot of different things you can do when you don't have to pay so much money, when it's less restrictive. California, it's nice to visit, but you can't pay me to live there. You can't have a gun, can't defend yourself, all the illegals. It's just too much. Same thing with New York, Chicago, Illinois, places like that. I don't want to live in. The jail system, it's totally ridiculous. Over here in the South, I'm good. Everybody's peaceful. Everybody's nice. Everybody's hospitable. That's the way that we are able to become more productive in society. This whole thing going to California with all the restrictive laws and rules and taxes and regulations is too much. I'm good. I'll pass.
Oh, see, I think it's too much on the South. That's what I think.
You said what now?
I think the regulations and the rules are too much on the South.
How you figure?
Because again, even when you look at, for example, the stipulations of registering your car in certain places in the South are way more costly. They're way more costly, and it's way more you have to go through way more. And the fact that you have to go through way more is what's going to make it way more costly. That's not the case in Washington.
That's really a state by state issue. It's not really the South, because when I was in Virginia, you had to do more to get your car registered. You had to do inspections and stuff like that, state inspections plus registration. But where I'm at in Tennessee, which is a border state of Virginia, all you got to do is get your tags once a year. You get to go. It's not a really big process.
I know, but there's other places in the South that you have to go through all of these, which it wouldn't be costly if, when you go through these inspections and stuff, they don't cost you a lot of money. But they do. So I mean
that's a state issue. In Virginia, the inspection was only like $16. It's a state issue. That's not a South thing. That's a state to state thing.
Yeah, but you can probably find that in a number of different places over in the South. Now I know on the West Coast, I know at least Washington and Oregon, that's not the way it is. But again, that's a mostly white and Asian population.
Well, in Washington, well, in California, you got to pass emissions, right? In California.
Yeah, you got to pass it in Washington too, but only for certain cars. Like,
but see, we don't have that in Virginia though. Ain't no emissions tests or nothing like that.
Right, but in certain places in the South, there are, regardless to how old.
That's my point. That's my point. Like certain, it's a state to state thing. It's not left coast, south, north. It's state to state. That's all.
No, none of them. A lot of them are not just state to state. Like, I don't know anywhere on the West Coast where they frame just with the healthcare market. I don't know anywhere on the West Coast where it's very liberal, mostly white, because again, Black people are over here, where just one simple system like the healthcare system. And the reason I keep bringing that up, because that is a big issue. The healthcare system is a big, super racist industry that primarily affects Black people in a very negative way. That has not been addressed. It needs to be addressed. And that's why I keep bringing up the healthcare system. When you go look at how they operate the healthcare system on the West Coast in these predominantly white areas, it is very, very different and much more simplistic and easier than it is in the areas that are highly populated with Black people. And I don't think that's a coincidence. It wouldn't be logical for me to think it's a coincidence. So that's why I'm saying, unless the Republicans are going to address these systemic issues that Black people face, how are they any different than what the Democrats are doing? Especially when the outcome is the same, because outcome is still the same. Black community has not been improving. So you're saying, you're talking about you're talking about things that, okay, the healthcare system, as far as like being able to access the website easily, is that what we're talking about as far as the issue that affects? So what are we talking about? It's not just about being able to obtain the healthcare insurance, but then being able to translate that to a facility that's going to give adequate healthcare, because we already know every healthcare facility does not have adequate healthcare. Based on your insurance type, you may be deprived certain things.
Well, here's a question I got for you. How much does a basic low level healthcare plan cost in California per month?
I know the basic low level in Seattle, I can tell you they're the free level, and you still have access to the best healthcare, which would be.
I don't mean Medicare, Medicaid. I'm talking about like paid insurance, because we got Medicare, Medicaid all throughout the South too. What about paid insurance?
Well, I mean, I know I had paid insurance out there, but I don't get sick a lot at all. And I've had free insurance out there. I've had both paid and both free. And I'll tell you that there was almost no difference. There was no noticeable difference for me in terms of the quality of healthcare that I had, whether it was.
I understand, but how much did it cost is my question.
It varies. Like, it really varies on how much you make.
Give me a roundabout figure per month.
I think at one time I was employed, I was probably paying about $75 a month for it, somewhere around $60, $75.
That's why you were paying that? That don't sound right. That seems like that's not right.
Why wouldn't it be right? Like, I don't.
$75 a month for insurance. That's what you were paying?
Yeah, health insurance. Yeah. I had it through my employer, and then I had it through the market through my employer.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and you can of course choose to pay more depending on, your deductible and things like that. But given the fact that I don't get sick a lot, I don't go to the doctors a lot, then I took the bare minimum of what I would have to pay, just, based on the federal tax guidelines that you would have to have it. So I was basically just getting it just to get it. But I can tell you, even when I had the free health insurance, the free, like, state-based one that was, I guess it was kind of like their Medicaid for their
Medicaid, yes.
No difference in my access to quality of healthcare. In fact, you could take that Medicaid and still go to one of the best healthcare companies, best highly rated healthcare companies, which is the University of Washington. Their healthcare facilities are some of the best rated in the country, not just the state, in the country. And you can have access to that with Medicaid. They can't deny you.
Okay.
Can't deny you, won't deny you. I don't see.
So how was the healthcare different in California than it is where you live right now? What's the difference?
Well, I don't remember accessing it in California. We were young when I left California. So
how do you know about the quality of it?
I didn't use California as an example. I used Seattle. So why are we saying California?
Okay, so Seattle. So you use Seattle's healthcare?
I did.
So
Completely.
how is Seattle's different than where you live right now?
We got 180, complete 180.
And in what way?
Cleaner, more hospitable, the service is better. They're more prompt, like just it's a complete higher level of quality that you would get for somebody who has either like no insurance or the basic state administered insurance versus paying. To me there was no difference in it. Now when you go to the South, or certain, I guess I won't say the whole entire South, haven't been over the whole entire South, but when I think about, you know, the place that I am in now, I'm consistently comparing it. Even having access to being able to go get organic food, you have to go out of your way just to get that in the South.
No. Okay, do you live in a big city?
Yeah.
Because like when I was in Virginia, I had no problem. You know, in Virginia Beach, that's the South, or like right at the top of the South. I'm like right by North Carolina. I mean, you got Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, like you got Trader Joe's,
and you're probably in a predominantly white area too.
No. Anybody that's in Virginia, you know what I'm talking about, right there on Hilltop, Laskin Road. That's a black area, or that's a lot of black folks out there.
I've definitely been to Virginia a number of different times. So
what part? Where in Virginia?
The part of it that's closer to DC. Though they're the areas
that's DC. I'm talking about Southern Virginia.
Virginia.
That don't count. I'm talking about
Virginia. Even when I was in Maryland, even when I went to Baltimore, even being in Baltimore, completely vastly different in terms of like in certain places in Baltimore, you go into the store, like you don't even see a produce section.
But okay, look, when you go to Virginia Beach, which is that's like 3.5 hours away from DC, but you go to Virginia Beach, right across, you got a Trader Joe's, and across the street, you got a Whole Foods. I'm talking, it's like right there. You get all that. Even when you go to a farm fresh food line, you got a nice produce section. Like I was able to get.
Does Virginia Beach get a lot of tourism?
Huh?
Does Virginia Beach get a lot of tourism?
Yes.
That's probably why.
It doesn't matter. You can go away from Virginia Beach. You can go to Chesapeake, Norfolk, Portsmouth. You got regular grocery stores in the neighborhood that got produce sections with fresh food.
Yeah, and those are probably dependent on income level, which is going to make it racially segregated.
Not even. Look, where I live right now. Right now.
Richmond. I know somebody who lives in Richmond, Virginia. I know somebody.
What about Richmond?
Where your access to those grocery stores is going to depend on the neighborhood, which is going to depend on the income bracket. That's what I'm saying.
Look, in Virginia, you got anybody in the chat. People in the chat, they from Virginia. If you in the chat, what about Berkeley? You got a grocery store right there in Berkeley. So that's a totally black neighborhood with nice, good, fresh food. Huh?
So you're telling me in the hood part of Virginia, where the income and tax bracket is lower, they're putting Trader Joe's and Whole Foods in those areas?
Yeah, it's a Trader Joe's right there in Hilltop.
Oh, they must be planning to
gentrify.
Yeah, gentrify the neighborhood.
See, look, read the chat. I'm talking to my man. So my son prayer time. Berkeley the Hood. It's a grocery store right there in Berkeley. Nah, it's like really good food right there. It's all over. This ain't no people tripping. Like where I live at right now in Chattanooga, you got all kind of good food everywhere you go.
Companies like that don't even want to put their places in the hood. So that doesn't even make any sense. What is Whole Food looking like saying, let me go find the hood of Virginia and put a Whole Foods in there, knowing how expensive they are, and most of the people in the hood can't even afford it. So that doesn't even make any sense. They're going to put their business in the areas where the people can afford it, and that's going to depend on tax bracket and income, the average income level of that area. When they put their businesses there,
the South ain't like California or New York. You know, in New York, like New York City, you're gonna have like bodegas and stuff like that a lot of times in certain neighborhoods, but it ain't like that in the South. In the South, you have more area, more land to be able to spread around. So you got grocery stores everywhere with great food, neighborhood stores you can walk to. They got great food, even if it's not a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's. You still got a farm fresh food line that all got great food.
Businesses don't work like that, because if they're going to put their business in an area, they need to know that the people who are in that area is, number one, going to patronize it, And number two, they're going to be able to afford it, because you're not going to convince me that Whole Foods is setting up shop in an economically deprived poor area. I'm not. There's
Right,
no.
I mean,
Believe that,
it's whatever.
because they make money. The
you
people
can believe
afford it.
you can believe whatever you want. In Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I live at right now, is a Whole Foods right downtown.
You don't
look
live
it
in
up.
the hood, BBL. Nobody is believing that you live in the hood or anywhere adjacent to the hood.
Do you live in the hood? Do you live in the hood?
No, I don't.
So why would you bring that up?
Because you're trying to convince me that you're in an economically disenfranchised.
I don't gotta be in the area to know where to listen to me. I don't gotta be in the area, like living in the ghetto, to know where the stores are. I know how to read a map.
There is no Trader Joe's and Whole Foods in the hood, ABL. You know that you're reaching. Why would they put their business there?
And Chattanooga, Tennessee, Whole Foods. Look it up right now, and you'll see where it is. And then look, and then
have one in Chattanooga. I'm saying they don't have it in the hood of that city.
I mean, hey, believe what you want. Believe what you want.
So you're telling me it's in the hood, ABL?
I'm going to
Whole Foods is in the hood.
It's right downtown. It's right downtown.
I'm not asking about downtown. I'm asking, is there a Trader Joe's and a Whole Foods in the hood of Chattanooga? Like, if that's what you're trying. You're trying to sell this to me. Really, this is what you're doing.
Hey, it's right downtown. You can believe what you want. Look it up.
You know, downtown and the hood is two different things. So I'm asking you in the hood.
Right. I've answered your question. You can look it up.
Okay, so no, it's not in the hood. You're just playing games. You're trying to be right.
I mean, it's right there. Like, you can walk straight from wherever you at. So, I mean, you can believe what you want. Look it up.
It's not in the hood, because the medium income or the zip code where that Trader Joe's is almost $50,000 a year.
We talking about? What Trader Joe's you talking about?
$50,000 a year. I'm talking about the Whole Foods on 2 North or 301 Manufacturers Road in Chattanooga.
Okay, hold on.
And if the average income is $50K a year, that's not the hood by anybody. So ABL, stop playing. You act like I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a person that's lived in the hood and lived in the suburbs. I know what they're both like. You're not seeing Whole Foods is not in anybody's hood. Neither is Trader Joe's. Stop it. Like, really?
Okay, hey, believe what you want.
Well, Irene just proved you wrong. What are you talking about?
I mean, you can look up a neighborhood by income, but that doesn't mean anything about the areas that's right next to it. You can be 2 miles away and be in a whole different neighborhood with a whole different tax bracket.
You know, sometimes in cities it's like that. It's like the financial district of San Francisco is right up the hill from Nob Hill, which is one of the richest neighborhoods in San Francisco. But if you go down the hill, is the biggest is the largest church that provides the most free foods, and that whole neighborhood is a ghetto. So sometimes in a city it's like that. Do you know what I'm saying? And there's a Trader Joe's up the hill for Nob Hill. They have a Trader Joe's, but there are no grocery stores if you go down the hill for those people. So that's sometimes like that in a city.
But does it matter? Because it's right up the hill. If you live in the hood, you have access to it. It's right there.
Yeah, but
that's my point.
Neighborhood. I'll tell you, in my neighborhood, I'll tell you the difference, because I'm in the South, but I'm not in the hood. And the reason I'm not in the hood, because it lacks resources. Okay, there's no resources in there. I can tell you within like a 2-mile radius, there's at least 3 grocery stores that sell organic food near me. Now, if I go to the hood, I'm going to see a bunch of corner markets, which I have. I've seen corner markets, but no grocery stores, no full-length grocery stores unless you drive some miles away from the hood. So the thing of it is I'm not buying what you're selling, AB.
So how far? Hold on. How far you got to drive from the so-called hood to go to a grocery store? Where you at?
Probably at least about 15, 20 minutes. 15,
20 minutes to go to a grocery store from where you at? Or from the hood where you at?
No, I can drive right up the 1 mile up the road, 5 minutes up the road and go to a grocery store. And then I can drive 2 minutes down from that and be at another grocery store. And then I can go in the opposite direction, a couple miles in that direction, and be at some more grocery stores. So in my area, no. I don't live in a hood.
Do you live in a densely populated area?
What do you mean by that?
Like an area with a lot of people in it.
Yeah,
Okay. That's interesting that you got to drive 15. Like if you in the hood where you at, you got to drive 15.
I don't have to drive that.
No. Listen to what I'm saying. It's interesting that you got to, if you lived in the hood in your particular area, you got to drive 15 to 20 minutes in a densely populated area. I would expect that with a sparsely populated area, but not with a lot of businesses and stuff around. It should be pretty easy to access a grocery store or whatever, just like what Irene was talking about in San Francisco, where you have a store up the hill from the hood.
A lot of those businesses, because even like you may have the hood close to downtown, but having affordable grocery stores where somebody is in the hood where they can access it, that may not be downtown. That might not be downtown though.
Mm-hmm.
And even let's say even if they did put a Whole Foods downtown, how many of your average Black households do you know can actually afford to be shopping at Whole Foods with as expensive as it is? Like, really?
I mean, you don't have to go to Whole Foods to get good food. You know that.
Even Trader Joe's,
or Trader Joe's. You can go to a regular grocery store and get some good food.
I don't know about that, but I will say
why not? Why not?
Say at Hunter's Point, they don't have any quality grocery stores, and that's a predominantly Black neighborhood.
I mean, what defines a quality grocery store to you?
Some place that's going to have quality produce that's not going to go rotten in a couple of days, have a variety, have a large selection of high quality meats, things like that, not the offshoot meat or the reject meat plumped up with water and coloring to make it look good meat. Like that's what I would consider high quality foods, where the box section doesn't, greatly outnumber the actual fresh fruits and vegetables and things like that. A place with like a bakery that's doing like fresh breads, things like that. That's what I would consider like a quality store where you could get wholesome food for your family.
Well, Hunter's Point, that's in California, San Francisco. So, I mean, that's a pretty liberal area. Why is it like that? I don't understand.
Well, the thing is that California is very classist, right? And there are no rich people that live out there now. But to your point, they are gentrifying the area south of AT&T Park, which starts to encroach on Hunter's Point. And so they're slowly putting in businesses there, but see, they're pushing the poor people out as they do that, right? They're buying them out because most of Hunter's Point are homeowners. They're old, Black people that own their homes. So yeah, I suppose if they go down 3rd Street, they could eventually reach a decent something. But the thing is, it's not actually in their neighborhood.
How far is that away from where you live?
Well, San Francisco is not a good example, right? Because it's 7 square miles.
But how far is it? How far is it from where they live, though?
It may be, if they hopped on the train, it may be like a 5-10 minute train ride. But again, San Francisco is 5 square miles. I'll give another example. Like in Oakland, in Lake Merritt, which used to be considered the ghetto, right? They put in a Whole Foods next to an abandoned hotel. And technically it's a poor neighborhood, but fast forward now, it's one of the most expensive places to live in Oakland, other than Oakland Hills. So when they did it, it was to gentrify the area, which is why I said, if you're seeing that in a poor neighborhood, the only time I've ever seen that happen is when they're going to be pushing the poor people out and buying up land and making the income, the cost of living there so high that no poor person could actually afford to be there. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily for access of poor people. And mind you, when you go into these stores, there's not poor people shopping in there either. So I think we have to consider that too, right?
Well, hey, I mean, if they don't want to shop there, that's really their decision, because it don't cost that much to eat healthy. Hello, anybody there?
Well, maybe. I mean, I think to say it doesn't cost much to eat healthy, that's really subjective, right? Because fresh fruits and vegetables are very expensive, and especially the fruit, right, is very expensive. I think vegetables are a little bit cheaper. To have a variety of them can be costly. I do think it can be done if you make a lot of things from scratch, but I definitely feel that if for $5 you can get 5 frozen meals, But $5 may literally get you 2 avocados if you're lucky, or a bag of apples, depending on where you're buying them, right? Then
where have you seen 5 frozen meals for $5?
Well, stores, I don't eat frozen foods, but stores sell them that way. They sell in the chat. You guys can tell me. Stores sell like frozen meals and stuff like that, like for $1 a piece and stuff like that. They really do.
Let me tell you what I see when I go to the store. Like if I go like right around first of the month time, I see a lot of folks with their EBT cards, freshly refreshed, with a cart full of junk, full to the brim. I'm talking Pop-Tarts, popsicle, cereal. Meanwhile, we're in Walmart. You got plenty of produce that's available. Is it the best produce on planet Earth? Maybe not, but it's still good enough. I eat it. You know, I'm not some kind of person to say, oh, it's from Walmart. I ain't gonna. Nah, I'm gonna eat it. You can go get the collard greens, the kale, the broccoli, and all that stuff. When I really didn't have any money, I was able to eat very good, very healthy. You can get canned beans, rice, brown rice, in the bag that you actually cook. You don't have to have no instant rice, no rice-a-roni or nothing like that. You can get some chicken breasts. Even you can get some organic if it's available. If it's not, that's okay too. Stuff like that will hold you down all throughout the week. It'll be filling. It'll be healthy. Not a whole lot of sugar and carbs, and you'll be good to go. People just choose to not eat that way. That's their decision to make.
Well, I do agree with that to some extent. I do definitely agree to an extent that people could do better. Like I'm an advocate of making things from scratch, because you can buy, I know at Walmart, because I am working on a series for this for women, you can buy like for around $5, 20-pound sack of flour, right? So, and that is enough to make, you know, pancakes and breads and pastas and things like that for your family, depending on the sizes of your family for 2 weeks to a month. But I also think that when the foods are low quality, they don't last as long. And when you're not one person and you're feeding a family, children tend to need to eat more and more often. And so I think a lot of people go to those cheap foods partly because they're addictive, right? There's an addictive quality to the sugars and ingredients they use in them. Secondly, because they feel that they can get more for their money. Because if you can buy a pack of hot dogs for $2, but you know, a pound of ground beef is about $7, and you have you know, 5 or 6 people to feed, you might opt to go that route, right? If getting a large jug of oil, which is what you would need if you wanted to do homemade fries or anything like that, if getting a large homemade jug of oil is $5 or $6, but you can get a bag of chips, you know what I mean? Now, I don't think this is logical, because I think when it comes to weight and stuff like that, it may not be the most pragmatic move. But I do understand why people would make those decisions, especially, let's say, if you walk in the store with just $20. Let's say if it's not the beginning of the month EBT stuff, and you're just walking to the store with $20, or if you don't get food stamps, and you're just walking to a store with $20 or $30, it could be cheaper to buy all of those things, but you may not be able to afford them, right? Because it's only cheaper when you're able to use it for multiple meals. It's not cheaper if you don't have the $100 or $200 to dedicate to buying the larger size items and the bigger packs of chicken and all that, so that, you know, as far as cents on the dollar, you're getting the most for your money. Do you follow what I'm saying? So, but I do agree with you, like to an extent, that people have to make better choices about what they're purchasing.
It's all about choices, because even if you got a bunch of kids, I mean, you can still feed your kids without buying a whole bunch of junk that you don't have to have. All that sugar and stuff that's unnecessary. You can get foods that ain't gonna cost you $1 million and still eat pretty well, eat healthy. Even if you got a whole family, you got 3, 4, 5 kids at the crib, it's you by yourself. You got your EBT card refreshed with monies for all those kids that you're getting, because everybody, you know, everybody nowadays, you're getting paid more money. You got a whole bunch of kids. You have enough on there to be able to get the appropriate foods. I should see carts fill up on the first of the month with foods that actually make sense. You know, even if it's going to go bad or whatever, you can cook food, store it in the refrigerator, put it in a little Tupperware or some foil or something like that. Tell your kids, warm it up when you're ready. You can make things happen. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't really trying to hear that. Like, my parents come from West Virginia, and when we came to Virginia, we talking about my dad, when my parents were together, My dad had a double wide trailer. That's where we lived. We still had plenty of money. Even though we didn't really have a whole lot of money, we still had more. A lot of these kids are just spoiled. They don't understand what real poverty is. So they expect to have all this fancy stuff, all the soda pop, all the sugary snacks. They don't understand what it's like to not have a whole lot of money and really have to sustain on, you know, a small amount and get the bare essentials. They don't know what the bare essentials are. And it kind of leads to a pattern of people going to the store, buying non-essentials, talking about, well, I'm poor, this is more expedient, it's easier. No, it's just lazy. You don't have to do that. You could eat well on next to no money with food stamps if you make that decision to do so, rather than just keep up the same decision making process that has got you here today.
Well, no, I do agree with that. I do agree that the allocation of funds is not always correct. I don't buy juice and stuff like that for my house. A sweet treat for us would be like having tea, which is expensive when you consider the weight. But I do agree that like drinking your calories, tea, sweets, even, you know, wasting money on things like cable, I think, you know, that's like $100 or however much it costs that could go elsewhere. So I agree with the reallocation of money. But I also think that, you know, there's a need to teach people the skills to do that sort of stuff, to make better buying choices. They have to know what to do with the food. If you have, you know, a tomato in your refrigerator and an onion and some rice, you know, if you have like some people wouldn't know what to do with random things like that, you know, unfortunately. So I think part of that is also educating people. I think there have been classes phased out that were actually useful, like home economics. I know when I was young, we took a home economics class. My mom taught me to cook at home, but when we went to school, we also cooked in class.
It was there for me too, Irene. I had home ec too.
Yeah, you know, and
can y'all cook? Can y'all cook?
Yeah, I cook everything from scratch. So yeah.
I've been cooking since I was 13, so I didn't really have a choice. So yeah.
Very good.
But see, that's not common anymore. So I think some of that, obviously it's parental responsibility to teach their kids that, but I think it was helpful when those things were in the schools as well, because that's a life skill. And I think people really lack life skills. And I think part of the reason they pulled it out is because it's advantageous to the corporations, right? It's advantageous for people to not be able to do those things because they are then going to buy the ready-made foods, which are actually more expensive in the long run. But I am really curious.
And super unhealthy because they're full of sodium and all of these they're super processed and just super unhealthy. But Black people also haven't been taught the value of healthy eating or how to engage in healthy eating, because we seem to think that healthy eating is for white people. I've heard a lot of Black people say things like that, like healthy eating, just dumb stuff like healthy eating, exercise is for white people. And it's like, no, you really need to engage in healthy eating and exercise. I don't like exercising. I can't stand it, but I do it because I understand and I notice the benefits that it have and the impact that it has on my body. But I've been, you know, taught the value of these things. I've been taught the value of healthy eating. I've been taught how to eat healthy. A lot of Black people haven't been taught that, you know, so some of them don't even know how to prepare vegetables to where they will actually like it and enjoy the taste of it. Some people, I've heard Black people not even know what the produce section of a grocery store is. So it's just, there's a lot of things that we need to be taught. We're still in a slave mentality in a lot of ways. And that's why I think people should stop telling us to get over slavery. It's still affecting us to this day in nearly every way. The way we eat, the way we conduct ourselves, like slavery is in us.
We gotta get over it. We gotta get over it and move on though.
But why don't
and they need to make recompense before we shouldn't get over it and move on until they rectify the situation and pay penance for it, because that's
you can wait your whole life for that, and then at the same time you're still gonna be wallowing in the misery of the past. Meanwhile, your whole life in the past you by. So what's the point in doing that?
So many different things in between that Black people need to focus on. Getting reparations is the least of their worries, because they would just give it back to white people anyway. So then we need to start with this nasty mindset that we have. That's first and foremost, because you're not going to get anywhere until we do that.
But I mean, I feel like nobody ever tells the Jews to get over it. Do you know what I'm saying? They're
I see where you're going with that. But see, here's the thing about it. They commemorate the past. They talk about the past. They have museums. They got the movies, and they bring it up. But they're not wallowing in the misery of the past as an excuse as to why they're not saying, wait. Hold on. They're not wallowing in the misery of the past and using it as a reason why they're not successful today. They remember it. They commemorate it, but they're still successful. We can remember it and commemorate it. You got the museums, you got statues, all of that is fantastic. I'm all for it, but we can't be wallowing in the misery. Too. We can't be wallowing in the misery of the past and use it as an excuse as to why we're not going forward. That is my point.
Don't leave out them reparations.
We're living our past right now. So if racism haven't gone anywhere, ABL, then you don't have anything to validate your claim by. Because if we're still, we were dealing with racism back then, we're dealing with it now. So the reality of it is how are we going to move on from something that's still happening?
From racism, that's different than slavery. Feelings of racism ain't the same thing as slavery happening.
But slavery is still here. Slavery is still here. It's still legal. It's still thriving. So what would you like us to move on from? This not still happening.
We talking about like going to jail?
That's slavery. It's still on the book.
But I mean, it's not involuntary.
It is involuntary. Prisoners don't have a choice but to work in the prison system. They don't have a choice but to do that.
Who told them to do? Who told them to commit the crime that sent them to the penitentiaries to begin with?
Don't stop, ABL. Really?
Well, you have to also remember that, and I went over these statistics. They're not in front of me, so I don't want to quote too many of them. We also have to remember that a huge percentage of individuals who have been wrongfully convicted or set up are Black people. And some cases 3 to 4 times more likely. I went over the stats for, I think, rape, robbery, drug crimes, things like that. And there's actually a big problem with that. And those are just the people we know about. Those are just the exonerations. That's not even counting the people we don't know about. And then also when there's a targeted effort to disenfranchise Black people and give them longer sentences and have laws that target the poor, which we know the largest population of poor are our people, I think we have to take that into consideration. And whilst I agree we cannot blame slavery for everything, I think we do have to look at the, oops, sorry, I'm making salad and talking to you guys. I think we do have to recognize the continuous string of violations against the Black community that have happened and recognize that this wasn't that long ago, right? It was only 60 years ago that they were still lynching Black people. It was only, 55 years ago. That was the end of the lynchings, right? That went on for 100 years. And then it was 55 years ago that Jim Crow existed. There are people still alive from that day. And then we had the 70s where we had the rise of Black nationalism. And in response to Black nationalism, by 1980, they started infusing crack into the communities. We know that this is what they did, right? And then they created laws to then
who is they? Who is they?
We know that the CIA, we know that white drug overlords and things like that brought crack into the community, and simultaneously as they were bringing cocaine into the country and whites were using cocaine and Blacks were using crack, they created laws to make sure that the Black offenders would be penalized at much greater rates. And then why
were the laws created?
Well, the laws were created in response to what they called the crack epidemic, right?
But no. Okay, you're halfway right. See, the thing about it is the Black community
created to mass incarcerate Black people. That's why the laws were created.
The Black community was asking. The Black community was asking for a response to all the violence that was happening in the Black community. That's where the laws came from.
Can you pause for the cause though? Because that's not the only place that the laws came from. That might be part of it. Because just like I can believe that, because I see how Black people's mentality is right now, and unfortunately we don't have a progressive mentality. That's one of the things that holds us back from progressing in society. So I do agree with that aspect, but it's only part of it. Because again, do you believe, ABL, that if you rip the foundation out of a building, that that building is going to still stand? Do you believe that that's going to happen?
Probably not.
Okay. So if this country was founded on, what was it founded on? Slave labor, right? So this country, the economy of this country, the power that this country has now, it was mainly founded, the foundation of it was slave labor, right? They built an economy, it built wealth for this country. Now they simply need to maintain it. If you can't rip the foundation out of a building and have it still stand, then you cannot change the foundation of what this country was founded on. So you have to have some form of slave labor to maintain this economy, because that's what it was built on. So while I do agree that Black people were asking for that, Black people get manipulated into asking for things and requesting things to their disadvantage.
What is your point?
Now, they have to have slave labor. That's my point. A lot of these corporations are running on that prison labor over there.
But who puts a gun to the Black man's head and says committed a crime to go to jail?
Crime is subjective. Black people's actions have been criminalized all throughout history. You can just look at history and see normal behavior that Black people engage in.
Why are most Black folks in jail right now? Is it for like things that they shouldn't be in jail for?
Crimes, drugs. It's what most Black people are in prison because of drugs.
So are drugs good or bad?
That's up to them.
If you're a pharmaceutical company, I guess they're fine. I mean, if you peddle drugs, drugs in your
I'm against, but to make it clear, I'm against big pharma as well. So let's have that clear. But my question is, are drugs good or bad?
Well, if they're bad, but if we're going to penalize people, it must be across the board, right? Why penalize a poor person for pushing an addictive substance, but then you'll let a large corporation do the same thing, and that's not a crime? The thing is, the lack of uniformity.
The question was, are drugs good or bad?
I don't think they're either. I think they're neutral. They can either be good or either be bad. Because
if they're neutral,
hold on. Because if you say that they're bad, then you're going to have to ask, why are all of these drugs from pharmaceuticals supposedly improving people's health? The very drug that a lot of Black people are in prison for is one that has a ton of medicinal purposes and is now legal, okay, in a number of different states across this country. However, you still have Black people in some of those very states where it's legal at, locked up in prison over it. That's why I say crime is subjective. What's not a crime today could be a crime tomorrow. It used to not be a crime to drive in your car and talk on the cell phone. Okay. Now it is.
If drugs are neither good or bad, then why was it bad for the CIA to allegedly plant drugs in the Black community if drugs are neither good or bad?
Because they created a toxic drug with the sole purpose of destroying, wreaking havoc on the Black community. That's why I said drugs are neutral.
Are drugs good or bad? If they're bad, then they're bad.
They're polarizing, ABL. You know what that means, right?
So basically, here's the answer to your question. Here's the answer you want to say. You want to say that some drugs are bad, right?
No, I'm saying that some medicines are poison and some poisons are medicine. And I don't know how to make it that much more clear.
Basically, some drugs are bad. Therefore, some guys that are in jail for selling drugs are in there for the right reason.
Then why isn't the CIA in jail? ABL. Why isn't the CIA being indicted? Then why don't you go advocate for the CIA being indicted? They admitted to putting the drugs there to begin with. So
because it was us that was selling it. Let's be real. It was us that was selling it and using it. Let's be real.
Right, but the justice system says there's something called an accessory to a crime, and if you're an accessory to a crime, according to our legal system, that means you're just as guilty as the people who are committing the crime. So why aren't you advocating for the CIA being locked up?
Because it was us that decided to sell it. If it was not for us, then it wouldn't have happened.
The legal system says it doesn't matter. The legal system said if you help a person assist in committing a crime, you are just as guilty as the person who committed the crime. That's what the legal system says. So why isn't the CIA in jail?
Who are you going to lock up?
The CIA. The American government.
But who actually did it?
The CIA. They came out and said they did it.
Well, we could start with Bill Clinton and Mena, Arkansas. We could also go back and revisit Oliver North case. We could revisit a bunch of different incidents in history that involve drugs. What do you
mean, how
There's
you
a whole
gonna lock
bunch of
up?
motherfuckers that's culpable.
How was the black community going to advocate for Bill Clinton to be locked up when we voted for him twice and we voted for his wife at a 92% rate? How are we going to advocate for that? That made no sense.
Black people are dumb, ABL. We know that black people are sick.
I mean, I'm not.
Stop asking
Yeah.
us about black people's pathology.
Okay, I'm just asking.
No, stop asking about.
Yeah, I'm not a Democrat.
Cannot be culpable. Black people are not competent to stand trial. Okay, now if you're going to sit here, ABL, and advocate for justice and people not committing crimes, and you just sit there and told me nobody forced black people to commit crimes. Okay, well, nobody forced the CIA and the government to be an accessory to the crime. If I drive somebody to a bank so that they can rob it, do you think they're going to let me off if I say, oh, I didn't go into the bank, I just drove them there?
You got to catch them both. You got to have evidence for both. So whoever in the CIA was involved with the drug trade, you got to find evidence on them, lock them up. I'm with that 100%.
We don't need to find evidence.
We agree. We agree on that.
We know who it was.
ABL, we already know.
A confession is all you need. A confession is all the evidence that you need is a confession.
A confession from who?
Why aren't they in jail?
Who was they?
The former head of the CIA that became the vice president and then the president during the crack epidemic, George Bush.
Oh, so did George Bush handle the drugs and give it to somebody? Was he the connect?
I would absolutely say he was.
Oh, for real? Okay.
Hold on, Cynthia. Hold on.
Nigga said, "Oh, for real? Hell yeah, for real, nigga."
No, get this legal work. No, maybe
George.
Legal work.
George.
No, ABL needs to get this legal work because I studied criminal justice and I really should be going to law school. But ABL needs to get this legal work. Everybody who is complicit in it, ABL should be in jail. So,
all right. So I say, find them and lock them up. I'm with you.
Hold on, Cynthia.
Okay, so why don't you advocate for that then? Why don't you go to the root cause of the problem and advocate for that? Why are you not advocating
for what? Advocate for what?
For the American government to be held responsible for putting those drugs in the black community that they sold.
The American government. You gotta name specific people.
The CIA, they're accessories to the crime. So why can't they go to prison?
Let George go.
Hold on for a minute. Hold on, Cynthia. See, because we fall into this trap of entertaining this nonsense. ABL is not a dummy. We heard just the way ABL's been breaking stuff down. We know that during the Alvin North trial, when he was found not guilty of most of the charges, they deemed that he was used as a pawn by the government. And that was one of the reasons why all black jury found him not guilty in 1989, because the reasoning that was written was he was a pawn for the government that actually supported the war. ABL knows this. We all knows this. They had crack laws and things set in place. All this stuff was thought of and created 15 to 20 years in advance because they had a heroin era before that, and they had Rockefeller laws and all kinds of different laws already on the books. Like, we don't got to play this game. Like, ABL, like, we fall into this stuff where we debate this stuff. ABL is pandering for a certain group. He knows what's wrong. If he can sit here and say out of one breath,
what's wrong?
Hold on. Let me finish. If you can sit here and say, well, they didn't have to sell the drugs, but then you letting off the people that actually was complicit in bringing it into the country, they didn't have to bring it in either. So we basically know what was going on both sides, but you just cater to actually the black people and the ones that's put in prison. You don't want to talk about that. And then let's talk about Big Pharma and how they lobby toward how they control Congress. I said
that I'm against them already, so we agree on that.
Wait a minute, but they should be in prison as well, especially the Sackler family.
In prison for what?
All of them should have been put in prison.
In prison for what, though?
Guess what? You know what they did? Their fine was we paid $1 billion. We paid $1 billion about our business and started a whole new generic pharmaceutical company. I mean, these families are responsible for all the oxycodone that go on the street. But that shit didn't make CNN because they got billions of dollars.
Why should they be in prison though? On what charge?
Because they was misbranding labels of certain things when people were dying. It was a lot of things. Look it up. Look up the Sackler family and why they were indicted. And when they were indicted, they started they took down Purdue Pharma. They started Rose Pharmacy, and then even went on to make more money with misbranded labels. And they was indicted from. They paid $1 billion fine. You didn't see it on the news. Nobody went to prison. Like, come on, man. Like, this shit is.
I mean, okay, so they got it. They had a civil penalty, but what would the criminal charge be?
The criminal charges was they still have lawsuits where people actually died.
a lawsuit, but that's not a criminal offense.
I'm not, you know what? I'm not gonna do this with you,
Abetting
bro.
is
I'm not gonna do this with
Involuntary
you.
manslaughter.
aiding and abetting is just one of the crimes that they could be charged for.
I'm
Aiding
not.
and
I
abetting.
mean, if you could
I'm
charge
not
him on
gonna
that,
do
then
that
charge
with
him
you.
with it.
After the fact.
No,
And
they're not
assessment
gonna charge
before
him.
the
They're not
fact.
gonna
You
charge
can
him
charge them with
because
that
they
too.
control Congress. They actually got a bill passed here through Pennsylvania Senator what the hell is his name? Tom Moreno, where they passed a law where the FBI couldn't go and search certain boxes that was being passed through the mail, and the FBI is now complaining against the Congress because these pharmaceutical companies lobbied to get this bill passed with their money. So now they're even at odds with the so-called the FBI and certain things. But that shit is not going to make the news. Like, I'm not doing this with you because you ain't stupid. And I know what you're doing. I'm out, man. I know what you're doing. You ain't fooling me. Don't fall for this crap, y'all.
My thing is that there should be, if there's going to be criminality, it has to be across the board. And that's all that I mean. Some things are crimes only when a certain group is perpetuating them. So if it's either going to be a crime or it's not going to be a crime. That's what
Like
I
what?
So what I mean is that either distribution of drugs is going to be a crime or it's not going to be a crime, right?
Well, there are legal drugs and there are illegal
but
drugs.
this is what I mean. It's the cherry picking. The legal drugs are the ones that the poor people aren't distributing, right? Or sometimes legal drugs are being distributed by poor people, but it's only illegal if the poor people distribute the drug. Do you follow what I'm saying? So I think the law should be, it's either going to be legal to distribute drugs or it's not going to be legal to distribute drugs.
Well, okay.
Like one or the other.
Here's the thing. If you are a person that is not a pharmacist, you're not a doctor or something like that, you just have drugs on the street and you're selling them, you can't do that. You know, you can't just sell drugs.
Okay,
like,
explain to me why. Why can't you just do that?
Because that's not legal. You have to go through. First of all, you gotta get it.
Why?
Wait, let me answer your question.
Yeah.
You have to get a prescription for a lot of these drugs. You can't just go buy drugs randomly from, like, you can't even buy certain drugs at an actual drug store if you don't have a prescription for it. So if you go on the street and you have drugs that you need to have a prescription for, you're violating a lot of different things right there. You have the drugs outside of a regular environment where it can be tracked and everybody knows what's going on. You can get the proper dosage, and you don't have the ability to you can't fulfill a subscription.
Right, but except for we know, okay, so that I guess that's where my call would be, right? Except for we know that with all those degrees and knowledge and understanding, they still inaccurately prescribe drugs. They still essentially, especially with psychotropic drugs, use human as guinea pigs. We know the entire meth epidemic was started because of doctor prescriptions, right? Because of them misassigning drugs. So this idea is a false idea that somehow it is better when the distribution comes through essentially what are mostly white hands versus when it's distributed on a local level. I would argue to deregulate laws surrounding drugs, period, as far as distribution is concerned, because I don't think poor people should get locked up for essentially doing the same thing that rich people are doing.
It ain't the same thing.
Addicting people to dangerous drugs much of the time. That's what they're doing.
I'll tell you what, here's what I would do. If you were to ask me, I would say no drugs would be legal, including cigarettes and alcohol. If you were to ask me, because I don't do any drugs, period. No cough syrup, no cough, no Tylenol. I don't drink, I don't smoke. So if you were to ask ABL, what would it do about the drugs? I would say no drugs legal, but I would get all kind of kickback. All the weed heads out there, alcoholics would be like, well, I need to smoke more weed, helps with my anxiety, this, that, and the third. I like to drink on a little wine on occasion. So you got to have some drugs in society. And then you got those that are chronic pain sufferers that's going to need the oxycodone, the Xanax, and stuff like that to do with their situation. People that are in hospitals for operations are going to need the morphine and whatnot. So you can't just say, well, you're just going to be able to just distribute drugs any kind of way. I would say tighten up the way that the drugs are being distributed in society and have more oversight. But you can't just say you can just get drugs and sell them on the street. That's going to further the whole opioid crisis and stuff like that that's going on right now. I would say that there's two. I would say, hold on. There's too many drugs in the street for 100% certain. Big Pharma plays a big part in that. I would say just have the bare minimum accessible only in hospitals for severe situations. That's what I would do. But people disagree with that. So you got to find the balance there.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think there's too many drugs in the pharmacies, like, right? I think there's too many drugs too. I personally don't use drugs either. But with that said, I feel that my only argument is that I see that things are criminality only when poor people do them, right? Murder is only bad if a poor person does it, right?
That's
If
not
a
right.
officer does it, if a military official does it, you know, they'll talk about
A military official. What do you mean a military official? Explain that.
somebody in the military. Do you know what I mean? So it's okay to kill.
No. If you are in a war
if you're
situation,
in the middle of a war, right? It's okay to kill children in the middle of a war, but who gets to sanction whether the war is valid or not? It's, you know what I'm saying? And so that's my point. It's like things are only criminal when certain people do it because we're all doing the same thing.
No, because certain situations are different. Like if a poor person kills somebody in the street and it's self-defense, they get off. Or they can get off, they should get off. That's usually what happens. Like, let's say you just minding your own business, you're driving down the street, and then somebody come up to you and try to wait, hold on. Let me give you the scenario. Let me give you the scenario. You mind your own business.
PTSD. So they won't go to jail.
You said what now?
The war person can claim PTSD. The military person, they can simply kill someone, say they have PTSD. They're not going to jail. It's happened many times. If you want an example,
here's my example. I was going to say.
You can look at Crime Watch Daily or Dateline. They have them all the time.
10-4. So here's my example. If you're driving down the street, you're minding your own business, all of a sudden somebody come up to your window, try to carjack you. They got the gun in your face. You can defend yourself in that situation and not go to jail. Y'all can both be poor. So the situation depends on why that person would be charged, convicted, or whatever. It's not about poor or rich necessarily. Now, if you're talking about somebody that convicted a crime and everybody knows it and they get off and they're rich, it's because they had money for a good lawyer or if they're politically connected. That's not necessarily a common thing that happens. Okay. So we just got to make sure that we understand, like, a lot of times it's about a situation that happens why somebody would get off or where they don't versus the money and status. Just like Soulja Boy, even though he had money or whatever, he had a bunch of guys coming to his crib, and I think one dude died that he shot a bunch of people. He was able to get off and didn't go to jail because it's self-defense. You know, castle doctrine, stand your ground, all that, it does help Black people contrary to popular belief. You know, matter of fact, when I was in Virginia, it was the dude that shot at 2 police officers that came into his house because they thought that somebody was burglarizing it. He shot at 2 cops. Black dude shot at 2 white cops and got off because it was self-defense. He didn't know what was going on with the officers.
Well, I'll say this. It used to be a time where people could agree. And I say this in defense of a lot of Black men that are in jail for murder and assault. It used to be a time where men could agree to fight each other and to shoot guns at each other. And that was legal, right? And now it's a criminal offense to have beef with another man and come to fisticuffs. And things like that, I think, should be decriminalized. Do you know what I mean? That's right up there on my list with everybody being able to carry a gun, or heck, more than a gun. You know what I'm saying?
So if I kill somebody, should I not go to jail? I don't understand. Like, if you're talking about just having a fight, like a simple fight,
yeah,
I can understand. But aside from that, nah, shooting guns because
or a duel.
Nah, no.
It used to be legal. I mean, why not now?
Nah, I mean, because, like, would you want that? Like, what if one of your loved ones got killed by somebody? Would you want the person to go to jail or not?
Did they agree to be in a duel?
No. The question is, if one of your loved ones was killed, would you want the person to go to jail that killed them or not? Yes or no?
It would depend on the situation. Like I said, if it's men settling business, I would think it is what it is. Like that's
so. Like, if you got a son and he got killed by somebody in the street because they were handling business, you would just be like, oh, well, no, it's all right because they were handling business.
I would feel the same way I would feel if my son went to war and got killed. I would feel
no. The question, because in war, you understand that could happen, and even if they were a police officer or something like that. But just a regular civilian, a regular person in the street, minding his own business, all of a sudden they get into a confrontation. Now they got to handle their business, and the person killed your son. Should the person that killed your son go to jail or not?
I would say my son would have to be a really good shot. I think that if men are beefing with other men, it used to be legal. Why are you saying this like it's a big shock? It used to be legal for men to settle their beef with each other. If they couldn't do it verbally, they would challenge each other. If the man wouldn't take the challenge, he would be ostracized. You know what I'm saying? And so that used to be legal. And I think now a whole bunch of men are in jail for coming to fisticuffs with each other, because Black men don't typically attack women and children. They fight amongst each other over territory, over business, over personal beef. And I think that that should not be illegal. I think men should be allowed to handle themselves. And if you're too much of a coward to fight, then you don't have to fight, just like in the old times, right? You don't have to fight. Everybody just knows that you're a coward, and you just carry that shame with you, or you get out there and you do what you do. And it's a traumatic thing, just like when your child goes to war to fight for these corporations and fight for these uber wealthy people and to kill women and children in other countries. If your child dies while they're over there, that's a sad thing. But see, life is, that's part of life. Do you know what I mean? Like, everything about life is not happy. But as far as just throwing people in jail and making slaves out of them for beef between men, I think that's problematic.
All right, so
that should not be a crime.
What if you're going to bring Days of the Old back, why can't I have a 13-year-old wife?
Well, some things were good and some things were bad, right?
So what like who's the arbiter of that though? Who's the grand arbiter of what's good and what's bad?
Well, right now it's a bunch of
that's bad.
Right?
That's bad.
I mean, if that's bad, then why is
like that?
if a 13-year-old girl being married to a grown man is bad, why is it not bad to kill somebody? That makes no sense. It gotta make sense.
Doesn't have to.
Either you're gonna have the ways of the old come back or not. Because look, if you want to isolate something from the past that used to be legal, you can't just have it in isolation. Bring back the whole old culture, which includes a lot of other things. You can't just cherry pick. Oh well, that was legal, so we can have that.
You don't believe that, because we have things that are the same today as they were.
No. What I'm saying is,
a lot of you. I'm sure you believe in the Constitution.
Wait. I'm talking
We're
about.
not talking about. We still live by the Constitution. We have
no.
slavery. So don't.
No.
Please don't.
I'm talking about old culture, things that have long since not been legal, that have not been in culture, that have died.
My point remains the same. If you accept the Constitution, and that's old.
No. The Constitution is not.
But you're not causing for them to bring them to bring slavery back.
The Constitution.
Some people that are old are okay.
The Constitution. Listen to me.
Are old are not okay.
The Constitution is not something that we just discarded and is not legal anymore. The Constitution we followed since then. We've amended it. We've made changes to it. Wait. Hold on. We've made changes to it. We made amendments to it. But the Constitution has been the bedrock. It's not been something that we just disregard. But we do disregard some old ways of the past.
We disregard the Constitution with stop and frisk, and you're for that.
I mean, okay, where say you can't do that Constitution?
Are you
exactly? Next thing.
Are you searched during a stop and frisk? Well, first of all, let's be clear. The law of the land is that if you're traveling on foot and somebody has not marked you as a suspicious person, you don't have to engage in consensual contact with the police. I need to do a whole video on this.
What
you don't have to engage in consensual contact with the police. This is the law of the land.
What law is that?
Oh, well, you want me to really pull it up? Because I will, because I wasn't ready for this conversation. But let me go ahead and pull it up for you, because I literally was going to be a police officer at one point, and I realized I could not do it. So that's how I ended up getting my firearm certification and all of that. So, and this is what they teach. This is what they teach police officers. That's how I know it. But I'll pull up the law.
All I'm saying is, if you're going to bring up certain old things from the past.
So, consensual contact is existing or entered into, created by mutual consent without formalities. So that's why you can go from just shooting the breeze with a police officer to them detaining you. Consensual contact is when you engage a police officer and you have the right to leave at any time. Detaining is when they've decided there's a crime and you're going to be arrested, and they detain you, and then you do not have the choice to leave anymore. Stop and frisk violates the consensual part of that. When you are on foot You don't have to give them an ID. You don't have to identify yourself. You don't even have to agree to engage a police officer unless you've been identified as a suspicious person. But with stop and frisk, there's nobody calling and saying there's a, you know, a black guy out there with, you know, a gray jacket and he's in the neighborhood and I know who he is. It's just a police officer choosing to roll up on some random person, stop them, and then lay hands on them and search them. And that's a violation of our personal rights. It's also a violation of the chain of consensual contact to detainment.
But
that
you
is
said,
right that we all
you
have
said,
when we're on foot, not when we're in cars, but when we're on foot.
You said that they can do that if they see you as a suspicious person, right?
No, let's say if somebody calls in.
No,
right?
no. You didn't say
Or
somebody
if you're
calls. You didn't
engaging
say that. You didn't say somebody calls.
Well,
You didn't
no,
say that.
I said if you've been identified as a
Because if
suspicious
you're gonna talk about law,
yeah.
we're gonna talk about law. We got to be right and exact. We can't be trying to interpret it.
Okay,
You did
well,
not say anything about if somebody calls.
Right, but then if the suspicious person is any black person on the street, I mean, we don't have to, because you've already acquiesced to the point that it is somewhat of a violation, but you're with it.
No. We've already solved it, because you said if you're deemed as a suspicious person, you did not say if somebody calls. So the police can just wait. Hold on. So okay. No. The police can just say you're suspicious, and they got you. Boom, no violation.
Okay, it doesn't work that way. You have to be.
Why not? Why doesn't it work that way?
I'm going to tell you why. Because this is literally like what they teach them, right? So first and foremost, I can't just be walking down the street and be considered suspicious. I have why not? Because it's a violation of civil rights. I'm just telling you what they say and what they teach and what police are taught.
What law is that, though?
Not just be walking down the street and be suspicious. They have to be doing something. So maybe it's very late at night and they're lurking around a building. Maybe you've gotten a call and said that somebody, you know, is worried about somebody that they've seen in the neighborhood and you meet that person's description. Maybe they're looking for particular people. Maybe you are at a crime, you know, at or near a crime scene, and you match the description of a perpetrator, or, you know, they think you may be connected to that crime. That's a suspicious person. It's not just a regular person walking on the street, because if it was, there would not be something called consensual contact. And consensual contact is when a police officer approaches you and tries to engage you. It's like when a police officer comes to your front door, but you don't invite them in and you are consenting to interact with them. There would be no such thing as consensual contact if every time a police officer approached you, it was a detainment. That's not how it works. There is consensual contact and there's being detained. In stop and frisk, there's never consensual contact, because if the person runs off, which many of our people do, they take off running, right? The police chase them down and they detain them. And so in that way, I would say it's a violation. Like, it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're obviously going to do it anyway, but we also don't have to try to paint it like it's something other than what it is, which is profiling and violating a person's civil rights, searching them unreasonably.
That's an opinion that you have, because you can't really cite a law that backs up your statement. And I understand that. I mean, that's fine.
I just read it, but let me go back to it, because I just read the legal definition of it, but I'll go back to it. And mind you, there's federal verbiage and then there's state verbiage. So let me do California's. Okay, so in California, there's actually, because they decided that it was a problem, right? So AB 953 regulations, California Department of Justice. Let me crack it open. It says consensual encounter resulting in a consensual search. That is the premise that stop and frisk is done on. Except for these encounters, if you ask the people participating in them, if anybody's been stopped and frisked in the chat, was that consensual? But this is how they pose it. A consensual encounter moving into a consensual search. California actually has an article to stop racial and identity profiling. This is an act of 2015. This is just California. In your state, maybe they didn't go this far. I know in some states, it's still being treated like what ABL is trying to portray, which is that it's a justified act.
Now, is it a law, or is it a directive?
Well, now it's been codified. right? But I'm just reading from the article because it gives a complete idea. But the reason I chose the article is because it says, and by article, I don't mean like, news article. I mean the article by the state legislator, is because it describes what occurs during a stop and frisk, which is a consensual encounter resulting in a consensual search. A consensual encounter is an interaction in which the officer does not exert any authority over or force on a person. The officer shall select this data value if a consensual encounter results in a consensual search. This is how they were trying to play stop and frisk, right? Which is that they walk up on you and they go, "Hey, what are you? What are you doing?" And then they proceed to frisk the person because people don't know that they can say no. They don't know that it's supposed to be a consensual encounter. And until there is a law broken or a reasonable suspicion that there's a law broken, that they can then detain that person. Stop and frisk is the abuse of consensual encounters. And that's all that I'm saying. And in California, like I say, AB 953 helped to regulate that because they recognized it was racial profiling, and the spin that you're putting on it is the spin that they were trying to use in California. Every state is not as fortunate, but the consensual contact versus detainment is the same. Like, that's the law of the land on the federal and state level. Whether each state has done what California has done, which is go that extra state step to admit that police officers are abusing consensual contacts and they're doing searches without detainment, is a totally different thing. That's a totally different thing because you're ripping a person's right to leave and not engage the police. And you can't do that when they're on foot. They can do it when you're in your car. But if you're on foot, if you're on your home, if you're on private property, they're not supposed to. This is right up there with those officers who come onto people's yards and take their cameras if they're filming, but you're on your personal property and they're not.
Okay. Now, the AB 953 is a bill. It's an assembly bill. It's not a law yet.
Well, I believe this passed in 2016. It was admitted in 15 and it passed in 16.
If you go down to the status, it doesn't say anything about passing, and maybe I'm missing it. Because now you should be able to cite the law rather than the bill.
Oh, let me see if I can find the actual law. I'm not looking at the bill right now.
Okay.
I was looking at the regulation because what I'm reading from the Department of Justice are the instructions for the police of how they're supposed to handle situations where they have engaged in consensual contact and how they, the forms that they have to fill out. What I'm reading is, my girls left a key in the door. What I'm reading is how they're supposed to fill out their documents according to what the interaction actually was. So hold on. Let me see if I can't find the law.
Okay, I think it did pass here. I see. I think. I'm not really sure though.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find the law for you. I'm going to open it up because what I'm looking at, this is after it already passed. So yeah, Government Code Section 12525.5. And it's also under the the Racial and Identify Profiling Act of 2015 is what the act was, and the government code is 1252.5.5. Penal Code Section 13.5.19.4 and Penal Code Section 13.020.
All right.
Specifically. And then it talks about, the document I'm looking at talks about which law enforcement agencies are subject to the new regulations, the data elements that are to be reported according to the changes, the reporting requirements and the technical specifications for their uniform reporting practices. And then I guess there's an audit system and oversight system to make sure that it's really being implemented. But this is in the state of California. But my only point in bringing this up is that the consensual contact versus detainment laws are uniform throughout the country. But every state has not taken the measures that California did to protect citizens' rights. during consensual contacts, which is that you cannot be searched. Contact, right? That's something that happens when there's a detainment that's leading to an arrest, when you no longer have the right to leave because you're suspected of an actual crime. And stop and frisk violates that. Do you know what I'm saying? So I guess my whole point in this is that we do violate the Constitution. Like, we're doing it in real time and place. And if we hold onto the Constitution, which is an old thing, I'm just saying there's some old things that people are being criminalized for now. And I don't think, having sex with children is something we have to bring back. I'm just saying that men should be allowed to interact as men and that not be a crime. And I see a lot of Black men in jail for beef with other men. And that's a crime. Do you know what I mean? When they're engaging in a beef. And like I said, in a mutual agreed upon, fight, there should not be a criminal. Because somebody could be like, I don't want to do it. And then you're just looked at as a punk, and that's fine. And then if you engage,
I got you. But I gotta get ready to go roll out. But it's been good though. It's been real.
Yeah. It's nice talking to you, ABL. Bye-bye.
I know.
Okay. I will talk to you guys later too, because I want to eat my salad really, really bad. But thank you for coming through. Bye-bye.